Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
New day, new vibe. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. This is Coffee Talk, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of morning by going to texags.com/coffee to get yourself some great coffee as I take my usual sip. OB's with us. Morning, buddy.
Morning. How's that coffee?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, as my buddy Larry David would say,
Pretty good.
Pretty good. So, a couple things to get into this morning. There's a lot to get into, but yesterday seemed like a mixed day, right? Half of the vibe on the show was, man, baseball, look at what they did. And there, of course, there was, a quarter of the audience thinking, yeah, but you just did it against a nobody, right?
Well, there's some truth to that.
We would never say that
that's
about
okay.
our friends at McNeese. And then there's the world ending when it comes to basketball. There's no way this team's going to make the tournament. But I don't think I'm an optimist. I think I'm actually more of a pessimist than I am an optimist. I try to be a realist. The reality of the situation, OB, is they have a good week. It changes it all. Just like the bad week they had last week changed it all. They're still at a point of the season where if they have a very good week, and it starts today, or tonight, I should say, against Arkansas, you can feel much better about your standing in the NCAA tournament.
Well, you can feel great if you can go 2-0 this week.
You'll feel fantastic.
Because that would get you a road win at Tennessee on Saturday. But the one thing that I think I would hope is that everybody has learned, and it's got to be drilled through everybody's head, even those that are playing, is that it's as big as that game is against a good team on Saturday, you can't overlook anybody.
Yep.
And A&M's been slapped in the face with that. You beat Kentucky and then you lose to Arkansas. You beat Tennessee and then you lose to Vanderbilt. So talk about
you have an okay non-conference, and you start off SEC play losing to
LSU
and getting your butt kicked
at
in
home when you had to lead at halftime and then you just didn't show up in the second half. Those kind of things. Henry Coleman said something yesterday, and I don't have the exact quote, but it was just more of he alluded to saying, we gotta be who we are, and sometimes we get out of that. And
do you think that happened against Alabama? They got away from who they are? Or Alabama was just freaking hot?
Well, yeah. I think Alabama. I think that was more about Alabama.
Yep.
I'll say that. But they know whether or not, they were turning the ball over early. I think they had 4 turnovers in the first
and
two.
And Bama was hitting the threes.
Yeah. So and Buzz made the comment yesterday that a quad 3 loss can be as damaging as a quad 1 win is to your credit. So you can't not show up again against Arkansas.
A&M is basically what the record is, which is obvious, right? You are what your record is, but they're basically a 500-ish team in the conference, right? And you just hope that they are maybe a game better than 500. I mean, you want them to be much better than that. But the reality is they win games that you think they're going to lose. They lose games you think they're going to win, and you end up somewhere in the middle. And 9-9 is not a guarantee for the tournament. 10-8 should, and that's where they are.
Yeah, and that's going to take going 4-2 from here out. I think they're just kind of schizo. I really do.
What's their best stretch? They won 3 in a row as their best stretch? Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't won more than 3 in a row in conference play. And I think when they won 3 in a row in conference play, they hadn't done that since November.
So, look, they won 5 out of 6 games.
Yeah.
That they basically need to do that again. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, let's hope. If you did that, you would.
If you did that,
that would include a win over South Carolina.
Yeah,
which would be huge. I guess that'd be your 7th quad 1 win. And by the way, only 4 teams in the country, I think it is, maybe 3, but I think it's 4, have more quadrant 1 wins than Texas A&M.
Teams that they beat, right? A couple of them.
I always think maybe one. It's Houston.
Oh, Houston, which they didn't beat.
It's
is it Tennessee?
Connecticut. I don't think it was Tennessee. I had it in my story, and I've already forgotten. But Connecticut was 1, and Houston I know was 1. But the point is, they always tell you, and I don't ever really believe what committees say, but they'll always tell you it's about who you beat more so than who you lost to. And if that's the case, A&M should feel pretty good. Just don't.
But you know why we don't feel good, OB? Because we know
Houston,
history.
Purdue, Arizona, and Connecticut.
Okay. Purdue just lost to
Ohio State.
I'm going to give credit to A&M there. And who else is on there, you said?
Houston.
Which A&M lost to?
Connecticut and Arizona. And I think, doesn't Connecticut have a player that transferred from Texas A&M playing there? Hassan Diarra. Yeah.
Is he still there?
I guess so. He beat when A&M made that run to the final of the SEC tournament 2 years ago. It started with Hassan Diarra
Big 3,
hitting
right?
a 3-pointer close to the buzzer, if not at the. I think it was at the buzzer to win that game in overtime. I think.
Was that against Arkansas?
No, that was against Florida.
It was against Florida. Okay.
No, it was Hayden Hefner's the one that went crazy against Arkansas.
That's right.
That year.
That's right. Well, look, today could be a great afternoon because you got baseball starting at 4. All right, taking on Incarnate Word. And just a great time on campus. Go support both teams. Go support both games because baseball, you want to keep it rolling. Baseball, the Diamond overall, what are they, 12-0 to start?
Yeah.
Take that.
I really hope that Trisha Ford has a really strong year.
She's had a great start.
Yeah, she's had a great start.
You can't get better
than that.
Of course,
it goes without saying, we expect a strong year from Jim Schlossnagle.
Yep, absolutely. A couple things, OB. First off, do you notice anything right around here and around here? I don't know if you can see it. So yesterday I was at Brazos Valley MMA, okay?
Okay.
And we're rolling. There's a thing called rolling.
Is there a little bruise on
the
bridge?
Yeah. And I got popped so hard in the face when my eyes started watering.
On accident or on purpose?
Yeah, it was totally on accident. I mean, it's going to happen. You're rolling, right? Oh, my goodness. And I wasn't bleeding when it happened, and I don't think it's noticeable on TV. I don't know.
Well, I didn't notice it till you called attention to it, and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, you got a bruise there. Maybe a little bit of a bruise on your lip."
A bruise on my lip. Yeah, but I hadn't been in a while. It's my fault. I've missed, with my parents being ill, I'd missed some of my training recently. First day back, and I got popped. I got popped. But the reason I bring it up is they're having a women's only self-defense seminar this weekend for free. They're Saturday, February 24th, 1 to 2 o'clock there inside of Post Oak Mall. So, I don't know. Irma can take care of herself. But if you know other ladies that would like to learn how to take care of a big dude, they're going to teach you.
Yeah. Yeah, Irma could. Yeah, never mind. I'm not gonna. Irma does. She can't take care of herself. Believe me.
Yeah, well.
I'll just say, if Irma was in a fight, she's not above reaching out and grabbing something.
Right?
Because it's happened.
Well,
not to me.
Speaking of fights,
that's going to go over well at work for her.
Yeah. Did you see the little scuffle yesterday, Incarnate Word, and is it Texas A&M Commerce? You saw that, right? Let's take a look at that. I don't know if we have any audio for it. Do we have audio? I don't think we do. But there's the game. Just so you are aware, this happened in the handshake line, and it just continued, and it continued, and it continued. You cannot hear the audio, but our former director, Sam Kaman, is the one on the broadcast.
Yeah, I was watching. You know what really disturbs me when I see things like this is when everybody starts fighting, and there's a group that are always trying to break it up, and that's fine.
Yep,
that's fine. But then when you see somebody who's not involved in the fight come in from behind throwing punches, and I'm like, let the two guys fighting fight.
But then
if you're not gonna help break it up, then what are you doing and coming in throwing the sucker punch?
Well, when Sam Kaman was actually coming into studio today because he does the play-by-play for Incarnate Word. They're here for baseball. We won't talk to him about this because he works for the university, but it's a little different angles of the fight yesterday. Could you imagine at the end of radio shows we did a handshake line? You, Luke, myself, like Luch. That could get interesting.
I don't know. I mean, maybe we should do that.
Maybe we should. Like we look each other in the line. Hey, good game.
I can only imagine what started that.
I don't know.
Somebody said something, and I don't know.
So I know sometimes.
I think that is another example of deterioration of college sports.
This is another personal story, and I know I sound like a guy that likes to fight. I really don't. It's more, we just have guys talking, right? But you remember about a month ago, there was a gentleman who said something to Isla on the soccer field.
Yeah, I remember you telling that story. Yeah.
He told her to shut up, basically.
Yeah.
And I had a word with Isla. You can't talk to an adult.
Yeah,
but that same guy made an appearance this weekend, and I wasn't there. God, I wish I was there.
Yeah. You don't ever tell somebody else's kid.
He called her a 2-foot little girl. Now, I'm not saying there would have been a physical altercation. Not saying that at all. But let's just say that wouldn't have happened had I been there.
Yeah, when it's your kid, you gotta, I think any dad's gonna say, "What'd you say?"
You talking about my daughter?
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, Isla did say. She goes, "Dad, he's not a very big guy. He's like 5'9", 5'10". I go, Isla, I'm 5'9", 5'10". What are you talking about? Why are you making me feel so short?
Well, he probably doesn't lift weights every day.
It's not going to be a physical altercation.
I don't know if someone's
just talk to my kid.
If someone's taunting your kid, I think social mores go out the window.
Well, I did tell our coach. I was like, hey, you probably need to talk to their coach because I will be at the next time that these two teams play, and I won't say a word unless he says a word.
Yeah,
and if he says a word, there's going to be some words.
Let me come.
Come on, let's do it. We can broadcast.
I'll badger him.
We'll have Sam Kaman there doing the broadcast.
Yeah, because he's experienced with it.
He can handle scuffles. All right, let's go around the room and say hello to the people out there. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do it multiple ways. 979-693-1150 is the number to call. That is the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Are you a little optimistic about basketball today or the rest of the way? I want to hear from you. I think you're pretty optimistic when it comes to baseball. You can also text us at 979-693-1150. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. That's where we find Luke Evangelist. Luke, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, David. How about the ball sports on the diamond? Okay, let's get right into it. Aggie baseball and softball are a combined 12-0 this season. Aggie softball swept number 14 Oregon and San Diego State this weekend on their way to moving up to 16th in the D1 softball poll. They will host Southeast Louisiana on Thursday at 6:15 at Davis Diamond. And I've got an encouraging Aggie basketball note for everybody who's a little bit worried about this matchup. Since 2020, Texas A&M is 5-0 against Arkansas outside of Bud Walton Arena. That's 3 straight wins at Reed and 2 straight SEC tournament wins. If you're a lover of bacon, sausage, pulled pork, and even baby back ribs, I believe they'll be serving those up in large quantities at 6 p.m. at Reed Arena today.
I think we had some of that in studio right before the show started.
The wife who takes care of me, had some sausage ready for me to go with my eggs.
It smelled good, man.
Does it? Some local sausage maker down in Snook.
Did you say the name?
Slovacek.
Yep.
So, and I enjoyed it.
It smelled really good. I was a little jealous when I walked in, not going to lie to you.
Don't know what I did to deserve such treatment.
Hey, Luke, have you noticed that your style is catching on here at TexAgs? Young Matthew Dawson yesterday with little quips and looks into the camera like, did you hear my joke? Did you hear it? Did you hear my joke?
I thought you meant my fashion style, but it's good to see that both are taking hold here.
Your fashion style?
Yeah.
That's not what I thought of.
Yeah, that would suggest that he has fashion.
Yeah, I know.
Or style.
Okay.
I think he's 0 for 2.
0 for 2. What else you have for us, Luke?
Yeah, Texas A&M men's swimming and diving. We know that they're at the SEC championships at Auburn. They got it started with a 1-2 finish on the 1-meter dive at the James E. Martin Aquatic Center over at Auburn. And then Texas A&M women's golf is currently finishing in 6th at the second round of the Moon Golf Invitational. They are not playing that on the moon, contrary to popular belief, but they went 10 over for that round.
What's the 1 meter dive? What's the highest you've ever think you might, would you estimate your highest dive from?
I would say I've done that.
From 1 meter?
No, I've done more than that.
Well, so the estimate.
Yeah. Whatever they have at most natatoriums, like whatever that. What is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I've done that.
I know one time when I was
actually, let me rephrase that.
Was it a dive or
I don't
a jump?
think I dove. In fact, I know. I think I was too scared to dive. I did the feet first thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I used to watch the Acapulco cliff diving on Wide World of Sports, and the Mexicans would go in head first. They didn't have their arms.
How do you know there's not a rock right there waiting for you?
Well, I guess they already have that figured out. But the Americans always went feet first. I always thought if you went feet first, it's just jumping in.
It's still scary from that height. It is.
Yeah, when I was about 10, there was a local pool in Dallas that had a real high, and people would go up there and then come down because
you get scary.
And I got scared. I wanted to come down, and some friends of mine was taunting me, and so then I did it, and I was like, I felt like I conquered something.
When we
Didn't
come
go
back
head first though.
On TexAgs Radio, let's do a little performance of the week. I bet we got a few names that we can throw out there. I think we got a few. We'll get into that. Plus, a little bit after that, Charean Williams is going to join us. But right now, we're talking about the Association of Former Students. Did you or someone you know graduate from A&M within the last 12 years? And are you leading by example in business and in service? If so, you need to reach out to the Association of Former Students because they want to invite you to nominate yourself or someone that you know for the 12 Under 12 Young Alumni Spotlight. So each year, the association recognizes a dozen Aggies who have graduated within the last 12 years for their business accomplishments, civic or military service, philanthropic efforts, and outstanding representation of A&M's core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and, of course, selfless service. Previous year honorees includes leaders in business and higher education, architects, petroleum engineers, nonprofit executives, physicians, and veterans and members of the U.S. Armed Forces. 2024 nominations close Sunday, March 31st. To be sure to submit a nomination very soon. To learn more about the recognition, submit a nomination, visit tx.ag/12 under 12 nominations. Again, that is tx.ag/12 under 12 nominations. It's the Association of Former Students. Great song.
Rock and roll never forgets.
Does it remember?
Yeah, I think it remembers.
TexAgs Radio
But
presented.
it never forgets.
It never forgets. We're brought to you by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. They are the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. The difference is real. They're an independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you so that you can accomplish your insurance goals. They can write insurance to any form here in Texas and several other states. They've got over 50 offices here in Texas. The headquarters is on Highway 6 right here in good old CSTX. Call 888-44-ROLLO or go to rolloinsurance.com. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. OB,
yes, sir.
Let's do the performance of the week, and I'm going to let you have the very first one.
Well, I'm tempted to go with Ryan Broniger, but I don't want to pat him on the back too much.
Okay.
So I'll talk about some of the guys that he was commenting on. Like, we got to start with Jace Lavalette, right?
Right.
3 home runs on the weekend.
Pretty good.
I don't know what it, look at that. 9 RBIs.
Pretty good.
And I say RBIs. I'm not thinking because they RBI.
But when you write it in the story,
I would say RBIs.
Okay. I like you.
Yeah. So that's where you start.
I mean, 3 of his hits this year, 3 of his 4 hits are home runs. Yeah. 75% of the time when he makes contact with the ball.
That's a good slugging percentage.
That's not bad.
And, scored 4 runs, of course, 4 home runs. So, 3 home runs. And that's a heck of a start.
Heck yeah, it's a heck of a start.
So you gotta start with him.
You start with him. You know who I'm going to start with? The starter of the Friday night game.
Oh, Prager?
Ryan Prager.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm glad the producers in the back put this note here. First start in 604 days. First time to throw, right? Like in a real game. 5 scoreless innings, 9 strikeouts, no runs. Ryan Prager was bringing it.
He was. And, right, he's come back from what, Tommy John surgery?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that was even more impressive, coming back from injury to do that.
Look.
I know Richard Zane is really a proponent of Ryan Prager.
He's the real deal. And if they can get legitimate starting pitching this year,
anything can happen. We'll be like Peyton Manning calling them audible.
I saw this
Omaha.
This gambling loser on Twitter, talking about A&M and their fans yesterday. Some gambling guy. I looked at his account.
For baseball?
No, he was a gambling guy in general,
okay.
Right? And he said, Texas A&M fans, after they beat New Mexico, we're going to win the Natty. Texas A&M basketball, when they beat, and he named a team early in the season, we're going to win the Natty. Texas A&M baseball, they win against McNeese, we're going to win the Natty. And he's, I think, a comment or 2 down. Sorry, your school sucks. I don't remember the guy's name. I wanted to engage, but I feel like it's not worth my time.
He's probably not big enough, and if you do engage,
then I make him bigger.
Yeah.
Yep. But here's my thing: there isn't a fan base in the country that doesn't overreact to both wins and losses.
I don't know. I'm hearing and you talked about it yesterday. I'm hearing a lot of people saying, "Well, it's only McNeese," because I think A&M fans.
But you can find something for everything, right? Like if I were to search Aggies national championship on Twitter, I'd find plenty of people that think we're going to win it all. And that's okay. That's called being a fan, right? And you could probably find people for Alabama basketball that think they're going to win it all. You can find people on Alabama basketball that probably think we're going to lose in the first round. We're not going to win in the SEC tournament.
No, you can't. Not at Alabama. You can't.
Okay, maybe another school. But I guess my point is you can find whatever you want to fit whatever narrative you want because people are different. And fans are going to overrate and underrate a situation.
But it's D1 baseball that puts Texas, isn't it D1 baseball that puts Texas A&M 7 or 8?
Yep.
So then you're saying D1 baseball is saying that A&M
correct
would be going to the College World Series in theory, being in the top 8. So right there, that's showing the ignorance of whoever it is.
Just people want to get likes and retweets and cause chaos on social media.
I'm going to have a hot takes.
And by the way, I don't think there's anybody who's predicting A&M basketball to win the national championship this year. I think we were saying if things play out right, this could be a second weekend team.
Yeah, I agree. I know that's what I was thinking.
I mean,
maybe they could finally get to the Elite 8, right?
Maybe.
And maybe they can. I mean, the number 1 overall seed might be Houston, depending on how they finish.
Right. They took care of business
Most
last
are saying
night.
Connecticut. And you were at the foul line with less than a minute to go with a chance to take the lead over Houston.
Yep.
Right? So in Houston. I know it wasn't on there.
It was Houston.
Right. So there's all kinds of potential to get to the second week. But right now, just get in the tournament, and then we'll take it from there.
All right, let's move on. Luke, would you like to tell us the next two people on the performance of the week?
Yeah, of course. We've got Allie Enright and Emily Kennedy from Texas A&M softball. Enright won the co-SEC Player of the Week after going 8 for 14 in 5 wins, including 3 doubles, 3 RBIs, and 2 walks. Emily Kennedy was named the co-SEC Pitcher of the Week. She held opponents to a .138 batting average, which sounds like David's batting average if Nick was pitching to him. And that was in 4 appearances.
I don't understand the joke. What's the joke?
No, I think just Nick's a better baseball player than you.
How do you know?
I just know.
But how?
I just know. Nick played baseball.
Does Nick play baseball?
I play baseball too.
Does Nick really play baseball?
I don't know. But I play baseball.
He was an All-American.
No,
Anyways,
that's not true.
moving on to the actual All-American candidate, Emily Kennedy. Most notably, her 2 appearances came against number 14 Oregon, where she struck out 15 batters in 9 innings of work.
Nice.
Pretty good, man.
Yeah, very good.
By the way, do we know what position this Enright girl plays?
Luke?
Everything.
So the answer is no. We don't.
I can get that information for you in 0.2 seconds.
Hey,
just if I was, if I'm
she
calling
plays in
again,
the outfield.
Do we know which? Because I want her in right field. I want to be able to be that guy calling the game, and he's giving the lineup. He's saying, we got Enright.
Oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did.
Yeah, she starts in right field.
Oh, there it is. Perfect. Enright.
OB, I've realized I gave Luke props on, when you make a joke and you look into the camera and you want people to. It's actually started with you. That's your thing. You give me this look every time.
You know what was funny is back in the day, Gabe would sometimes say things with absolutely no meaning to be risque. But he would make some comments, and it got to be, I guess I would always, when he would, I'd like go.
Would he
and
get
make
it?
a face? No, but whoever was the producer back then, I can't remember because we change.
Yeah.
Always was ready and would. It might have been Dalton, and so
zoom in on your face.
It was actually kind of funny because he'd say something again.
Didn't mean in that.
Gabe was of much higher moral fiber than me.
Yeah.
In fact, everybody is.
Well,
so
there's that.
So he would say that, and I'd go something, and I'd go like,
"Hey now."
It became kind of a gag, kind of a bit.
Well, I do know when you say something that's clever,
but I know it's coming.
It's coming, or it's about to happen. And Luke and now Matthew Dawson are doing that. Jackson Moss will probably take suit as well. Let's do this. Let's hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, can we talk to Charean Williams? Is that all right with you?
One of my favorites.
Yep. We got some NFL things to get into. I think we got to talk Mike Evans.
Mike Evans, where's he going to be next season?
There's some Cowboy things out there that I want to kind of get into.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. Tyron Smith, not retiring, helps he stays with the Cowboys. I love this. This might come up a couple different times. Antonio Pierce wants to have the Jordan rules for Patrick Mahomes. Did you see that? We'll explain what the Jordan rules are for the young audience if they don't know.
I just wonder how it applies to Patrick Mahomes. So.
Well, they're not going to give him, they're going to make sure they feel him, which in today's NFL, I don't think you can get away with. If you breathe on a quarterback, you're rejected.
A Raiders coach is complaining about Mahomes, a Chiefs quarterback. He's
not complaining about it. He just wants Mahomes to know you're going to get hit every time.
Get hit.
Yeah, kind of like
that's the Raiders for you.
Yeah, that's the Raiders.
Dirty bastards.
Hey now, we're talking QC Kinetics right now. They're clean. I love them over there at QC Kinetics. If you're sick and tired of achy joints, dread the idea of surgery, what do you need to do? You need to call QC Kinetics right now. Wait till the end of the spot when I give you their phone number. I'm going to give it to you right now if you want real quick, 979-452-6000. But let's get into it because if you call QC Kinetics today, the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideas like steroids and surgery are no longer your only option. So if you have different options, why don't you look into your options? And one of those is regenerative medicine, and they do that at QC Kinetics. They'll transform your life with innovative Non-surgical, that's the key thing right there. Non-surgical drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. So if you've got knee pain, you got back pain, you got shoulder pain, you've got pain from arthritis or injury, don't let this pain keep you from living the life that you want to live. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments harness and direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair that damaged joint tissue. So it's a different and revolutionary approach that's going to get you the most out of your life. You're going to love what happens afterward. Long-term relief with no downtime. Reclaim your mobility right now. Reclaim your independence. Walk, run, play, jump rope, you name it. Climb trees like OB does without the danger of trauma and surgery and no harmful drugs. Call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation. Their phone number, 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good with Maroon U. OB is with me. I'm here. I'm David Nuño. It is Tuesday, February 20th, right?
Yes.
2024. Huh, what a day. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. That's where we find Charean Williams of Pro Football Talk, Hall of Famer, Aggie extraordinaire. Good morning. How are you, Charean?
Well, I want to give a shout-out right now to my friend John Hurtart. He died last week, and his funeral's today in Good Ag. Hurtart Hall may sound familiar. That was named after his father. He's in the journalism Wing of Honor, it's a really good Aggie, so everybody can say here for John Hotard today.
Here. Yeah, absolutely. Thoughts and prayers to the family. Charean, I wanted to start off with some NFL with you. Mike Evans, the report came out yesterday. It looks like he's going to test free agency. Give us the latest of what you're hearing about Mike and where potentially he could end up.
Yeah, I think he will test free agency. I think he will end up somewhere else. I think the Chiefs are going to have some interest. I think the Texans are going to have some interest. He's going to have a lot of interest from around the league, from a lot of teams, from what he's done, his 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, you're almost guaranteed a 1,000-yard season. Now, how much longer can this last? That's the question is, how long do you want to give him a contract for? How much longer do you think he has in him? So that's the real question of how long the deal's going to be. But he can have his pick of where he wants to go. And if he wants to go back to Tampa, maybe taking a lesser deal to go back there, which I don't think he'll do. So I think he's going to end up somewhere else next season.
What would, in your opinion, be the best fit for him or fits?
I think, a place with a good quarterback, obviously. You don't want to go to a place like Chicago where you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. You presume it's going to be a rookie, but maybe that rookie ends up being like C.J. Stroud. But, you have questions about that. You have questions about Pittsburgh, places like that where you just don't know who the quarterback's going to be and how much they're going to throw the ball. If you go to a place like Kansas City or Houston, they're going to throw the ball. They have good quarterbacks. That, to me, is the two leading places. Houston to be him basically going home. Obviously grew up in Galveston. And then Kansas City, just an opportunity to play with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's going to pad those stats for however long he plays in Kansas City. I mean, I think he would have some great numbers there. It would be a great fit in Kansas City. So that, to me, seems like the two most realistic fits for him. Now, somebody may come and offer more money, but that's when you've got to get into what's best for my career. Here's Pittsburgh, which is not going to be Pittsburgh because they never offer the most money in free agency, but let's use that as hypothetically. Here's Pittsburgh offering me the most money, but I don't know if they're going to throw the football. I don't know who they're going to have at quarterback, or I can go to Kansas City for a little bit less money and have a great quarterback to play with for probably the rest of my career and know that I'm going to get my yards and my catches and have a chance to win a championship. I think at this stage in his career, that's what he wants, a chance to win a championship. If you want that, there's no better place to go than Kansas City.
Talking to Charean Williams, surprised that they're not going to franchise tag there at the Bucs Baker Mayfield after the season he had?
A little bit, but I think they know that they're going to work out a deal with Baker Mayfield, so I think they're going to use that franchise tag on Winfield and then end up signing Baker Mayfield. It's a good fit for Mayfield. It's a good fit for the Bucs. So I just feel like they're going to get a deal done, whether that's before free agency begins or after the start of free agency. I don't think he's going to look anywhere else. I think he likes it there. I think he likes what he has in the Bucs, and it is going to be a little bit different when you don't have Mike Evans out there catching passes for you. That's for sure. They're going to have to do something at the receiver position for him. But no, not really surprised by that, especially considering what the tag is.
I heard somebody talking on the radio on the show that comes on before us, talk about DeMarcus Lawrence was using the tired legs and things like that as a reason that the Cowboys didn't play well in the playoffs. What do you make of that? I mean, everybody's in the playoffs just played 17 games. Why are they different?
Yeah. His own teammate Micah Parsons called him out for that as well and said, that's not an excuse, whatever that is. And I think he's right. And he said, this is the kind of thinking we need to get out of here. And I think it is. Even if that was the truth, and I don't think it's the truth because as you pointed out, OB, everybody has played the same number of games for the entire season. So, the Packers were playing for their lives week after week. So if anybody was tired, it was the Packers' legs who were more tired than the Cowboys' legs. It was a lame excuse. And even if that's true, you don't come out publicly and say that. You don't use that. So I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know. Obviously, he wasn't thinking when he said that. But I think Micah's right, and I think Micah talks too much. But in this instance, I think he's dead on that they need to get rid of all the excuses and that kind of thought process in Dallas and go grind and quit talking about it and go perform. There's just too much talking and whining and crying and everything else. Go play. Figure it out.
How is Micah perceived by the league and his teammates? And you mentioned him. Sometimes he talks a little bit too much. Is he beloved by teammates?
Yeah, his teammates like him, obviously. They're like any player who plays as hard as he does, and practices as hard as he does, and does what he does on the field. I do think guys love playing for him. I think he's a good influence in the locker room, especially the way he works. But, yeah, I think outside of Dallas, obviously, I think that, him just talking so much has grown a little thin, at least for me. I'm kind of tired of some of the stuff that he has said, and just ready for him to go play and concentrate on football. But they have that right, they have that opportunity to go talk. So that's his show that he's done. So it's just like the Kelceys. Go, if that's your show, go do it. And I'm just going to kind of tune it out most of the time, and that's my prerogative as well. But I thought he brought up good points about P.J. Watt. Whining a little bit about not getting Defensive Player of the Year, and he to his credit, he credited Myles Garrett and said Myles Garrett should have been the choice if it wasn't going to be me. I'm glad it's Myles. I think he's was the best defensive player in football behind me, and so I do applaud Micah for pointing some of those things out. And he has his voice and he has his stage, and I've just kind of grown a little. I know other people have too, but grown a little tired of it, but. Again, it's his platform, it's his stage. He has every right to do that. For me, I could just tune out half of what he says, and I kind of just catch the parts on Twitter that are maybe post-worthy. But a lot of times, I think he's just talking to talk a lot of times.
Hey, Charean, there's still 2 months before the draft. A little bit more than that.
Next week's Combine, though.
Yeah, I know. All those things.
Combine.
So we're going to talk about it a lot for the next 2 months. But does any player make more sense for Dallas than Edgerrin Cooper?
No, it really doesn't. And, they need those linebackers. They need to improve at the linebacker position. We talked about that. And then in the middle of the line. And that's what Micah said, too. And he's dead on that that's 2 areas that they need to get better in. And he makes perfect sense for the Cowboys. Probably the second round, if he lasts that long in the second round. But I don't think he's going to the first round. So probably early second. You have to trade up if you want to get him. That's the problem. That's where Dallas is right now because they're too low, and you're probably going to spend a first rounder on him. So the problem is last year they drafted for need. And they made a mistake, and it was just like the Taco Charlton year. They did the same thing. When they draft best player available, they do really well. When they draft for need, they don't do really well. And they didn't have a good draft last season.
Nope.
Now maybe Mozzie Smith and some of those guys come on and play better, but that was not a good draft last year. And they can't afford another draft like that. They need to draft the best player available, no matter what that player is. And guess what? Tyron Smith, I wrote this last night, Tyron Smith's probably going somewhere else. So you're going to move Tyler Smith outside to left tackle. So you've got to have a left guard in there. You're going to lose a Pro Bowl left guard because you're moving him out to left tackle. And that's why they drafted him. I get that. But you're going to need a better guard than what you have. You're probably going to lose your center. You're going to need a better center. And that's fine. They need to upgrade at that position anyway. But you're going to have to address those 2 positions. So if there's an offensive lineman there, whatever it is, I mean, you can upgrade at just about every position on your football team, including receiver, including tight end, whatever that position is, whoever that best player is, that's who you need to take, regardless of the need. But at some point, yes, they have got to address the linebacker position, inside linebackers, and they've got to address defensive tackle. They're just not very good there, and they were exposed there in the postseason and in all the big games they played.
For 3 years, yeah. Hey, should they get in the Mike Evans sweepstakes real quick? Because you mentioned receiver.
Yeah, they're over the cap right now. I just don't know if they can afford to spend that money on receiver with their other needs. I think at free agency you do have to look at needs rather than, who just might help you. regardless of position. And it certainly would help them, but I just think they have bigger needs to spend that money in free agency, including the positions we just talked about. I just think those are their two biggest needs, along with running back as they go into free agency. And running back, I don't know that I would spend money on a free agent running back. You can get running backs, as we saw with A-Chain and some other guys, with where they're drafted. You don't need to draft a running back in the first 2 rounds to come out with a good running back.
Charean, let's close with the Mahomes rules. I saw that headline from Antonio Pierce that they're going to have the Mahomes rules like the Pistons used to have the Jordan rules. We're in a different age of football where I don't think some of that is going to fly, but I thought it was an interesting quote at least.
Yeah, it's interesting that he would say some of that stuff out loud, got to hit him and all those sorts of things, but that's what teams say privately. I mean, that's what you got to do to a quarterback. You got to make him uncomfortable in the pocket, and that means hitting him. And regardless of how that sounds to the league, because they want to keep their quarterbacks upright, that's what teams are trying to do. They're trying to get to that quarterback and make him pay, put him in pain so he doesn't stand back there as long, so he gets rid of the football, so he makes some bad throws, all those things. That's what teams do. I mean, that's just reality of the situation. So, but it is interesting that he would say that out loud. But we'll see. That AFC West is really interesting. You think about the coaches in that division now with Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. You exclude Antonio Pierce, who's never been a full-time head coach. But the other three coaches, Andy Reid and the other two, I think is as good as we've seen in the NFL since the days of Jimmy Johnson and Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells and that group of coaches. Before that, it was Tom Landry and those other two coaches. But I think it's as good as we've seen since those NFC East days of late 80s, early 90s, just with Hall of Fame type coaches in there. I just think it's going to be great with the coaching. And those teams are going to get, those two teams are getting better. We'll see about the Raiders. But I know those other two teams are going to be better with the coaches they have.
Great stuff, Charean. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys.
All right, good stuff there from Charean Williams. When we come back, we'll check in at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Got some other topics, maybe some quarterbacks in the draft to discuss that and more. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Luke Evangelist, I know we got some text messages coming in.
Yep, I've got a text message from Jim in Temple that says teams that sign Mike Evans are going to need salary cap room. Mike is going to get paid because this is probably his final contract. The Texans have $70 million in cap room. He would be coming home and playing with a top, young, proven quarterback in C.J. Stroud. I'm all for it. I would like to see Mike Evans on the Texans.
I don't have an issue with that, but I just wonder, is Mike going to be the guy that's going to put them over the top?
I don't think that. I still think they're.
If he's still wanting to win championships, right?
Right.
Late in his career, man, Kansas City sure.
Look, everybody's got their own thing.
But he doesn't have to pay state income tax.
This is true. But we all have our own vision, right? Like some people want to play at home. That's what they want to do. And hey, we're really good too. Up and coming team, why not? Some people are like, dude, I need another chip. And Kansas City is my best chance, and I'll take less money to have Patrick Mahomes throwing me the ball and matter when it's supposed to matter. We matter.
So, what would be more important to you, the money or the ring?
Well, I don't think I'm a good example. Okay, I don't, because I would probably want to be close to home.
Okay,
that's always been everything that I've done career-wise has been that. I want to be close to my parents. I want to be close to my brother and his family. That's always been that's me. And I could have made more money elsewhere.
All right. So,
but I'm not getting offered millions and millions of dollars, right? Like,
and he already has a ring.
And he already has a ring, yeah. But wouldn't it be nice to have two?
Oh, yeah. I think a set is always better.
I agree with you, Luke. What else, buddy?
Got another text message from Lubbock. Got my baseball and softball tickets during spring break. Bringing the family down from Lubbock for some ball. Got to get them out of tech country as much as possible.
Heck yeah.
That's that 6-hour drive. I admire his enthusiasm for the program.
I get less and less okay with long drives.
I'm used to them.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got to see my son.
You don't get sleepy? You don't get tired?
No. You can see the in-laws at 6+.
Yeah.
You know.
You're used to it.
I'm used to it, I guess.
Every summer we drive somewhere. I know we're going to Georgia for freaking soccer, and we might have to go to Seattle. I'm like, I'm not driving to Seattle.
No, don't drive to Seattle.
That's how long of a drive would that be? Like 30 hours? At least?
At least. When I was 18, I drove from Portland, Oregon, back to White Oak.
That's got to be the worst drive ever.
I think I made it to Dallas on either the second or the third day and stopped at my brother's house to sleep.
Yeah.
I could have made it to White Oak, but
by the way,
you
never answered you asked me what it would be more important to you. What would be more important to you, go back home or for another trip?
At this stage, if I was Mike Evans at this stage in his life, I would think he would say, or at least I would say if I was in Mike Evans' shoes at this stage, I'd say the ring. I mean, he got a huge deal from.
But let me ask you this. If he won a ring with Houston, that changes the way we look at him forever. The Texans.
Yeah, but he's going to have to get by Patrick Mahomes.
He might have to, yeah. But I'm just saying, if you do it, if you win a ring with Kansas City, it's like Durant winning with the Warriors.
I am very impressed with what the Texans have done. They finally figured out their own problems, it appears. But I'm just saying, let's pump the brakes a little bit on them.
Absolutely.
They got into playoffs because the Jaguars fell apart late in the year.
They also won how many games? 10 games?
But they got into the playoffs. I'm impressed with what they did. I love their quarterback, and the guy making the draft picks. Finally, they got somebody that's competent there. Not just competent, but very good.
You know what's still bugging me?
What?
Luke thinking that Nick would strike me out or be better at baseball than me. He has never seen me play ball. He might be right, by the way. I don't think I'm very good at it, but like I did play high school baseball.
Did you?
Yeah.
What position?
I feel like high school baseball has changed in the last 50 years.
You know what else has changed? We don't have the need for a news and social center. We don't need it. Like, literally, we don't need that or a director. Well, actually, we need a director. I like Nick. Jackson Moss, All right, thank you, Obi. Appreciate you. When we come back, somebody who actually can play basketball, Justin Lanham, will join us here. Welcome back into TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We'll talk a little basketball here. We got a game coming up tonight against Arkansas. They better get this one, guys. No doubt about that. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law hotline. Good people can have a bad day. Call Brian Foley Law at 936-596-0407. They serve Houston, the Woodlands, Conroe, and the Brazos Valley. Justin Lanham is in the house. Justin, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
I'll be doing better if we can string some wins together here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let me ask you this. A good week could go such a long way to at least making you feel like, all right, we're back to where we – maybe not completely back to where you were after the Tennessee game, but feeling much better about things. But a bad week, if you lose to Arkansas today, like, I mean, you got a road that you may not be able to climb – a hole you may not be able to climb out of.
Yeah, absolutely. We thought, Vanderbilt, you could have circled that one before the year started and said, hey, this is one that we're for sure going to get. And that didn't happen. And so now, again, you've kind of set yourself behind the 8-ball here. And so, you can't lose to Arkansas tonight. It just can't happen. And so if you did that, then you basically, I think you would have to win the rest of the games on your schedule. And I just don't see that happening either. So, yeah, it's a must win tonight. I mean, it just is what it is.
Well, is it the timing? Is it something wrong offensively? Is it something wrong defensively? What are you seeing right now that like, hey, this isn't clicking? Or is it just, look, you played on the road against Vanderbilt, and most of these games come down on the wire anyway, and you lost that one. And Alabama, you ran into a red-hot team that shoots the lights out, and you just had a bad day.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of different things. I think in the Vanderbilt game, I was extremely disappointed. I was way more just left with a sour taste in my mouth after the Vandy game, just because I felt like we didn't play hard. Like I just felt like the energy wasn't there. And it's so sad because you're watching that game, and at no point, just being transparent, no point did I think that we were going to lose that game. I thought we were just going to find a way to pull it out. We were going to get out of there with a win. I didn't care if it was by 1 or 2, just get out of there with a win. And that didn't happen. And, look, whenever you turn the ball over 12 times in a game that's a low possession game as it is against Vandy, you're going to, it's going to be tough to win that game. The only thing that really stinks about that, too, is you shot the ball really well from the free throw line. And you also shot the ball well from outside for us, And so it's just tough when you can't pair and string a couple of those things together. And that's what's tough about this team is sometimes one stat category is just so glaring that you feel like you can't overcome it. And sometimes that's our shooting. But unfortunately, in the Vandy game, the 12 turnovers was one of the glaring stats. And on top of that, I believe that they had 12 more shot attempts than we did that game. And so that's just really hard to overcome. So, and then, the Alabama game just had a different feel. Alabama's really, really good. They play a totally different style of basketball than we do. Obviously, you saw that when they're scoring 100 points. And we just don't have the offensive firepower to put up those kind of points. And so when you're allowing that much, I just don't think that that's realistic to overcome.
So one issue that I have, and it's just maybe because I'm a conservative athlete, if you will, I don't like shooting a bunch of threes when you don't make a bunch of threes, right? Alabama, that's their specialty. They hit 18 of 41 in that game. A&M, 4 of 23. I just feel like that's too big of a number, and I understand the why behind it, right? You're falling behind. That's maybe the best and most, the easiest way to get back into a game is by stringing together some threes. I just don't think this team is built to hit a bunch of threes. I like them to see their number closer, regardless of the outcome, closer to 15 to 17, not as many as 23.
Yeah, I agree with you, David. The only thing that's tough about that is when you're giving up that many threes on the other side, it's really hard to combat that with twos. And especially when you get empty possessions, I think it's really hard. So you almost get into this like dire mode of like, hey, we have to put up threes to combat, what they're doing and as many threes as they're putting up. So, but I agree with you 100%. I mean, we're just, that's not us. And as bad as I want that to be us, as bad as I want to be, as bad as I want to have the same offense that Alabama has, that's just not us. And I I really do. I would love to be the team that is shooting 43s a game and can knock down, 18 of them, 20 of them, on a nightly basis. But unfortunately, that's just not us. So I agree with you 100%. It's kind of a recipe for disaster whenever we start taking that many shot attempts from outside.
Why was Alabama able to hit so many threes? Obviously, they got a lot of guys that can hit buckets, right? That's how they're built. But was there something wrong defensively, or is just one of those nights?
If you go back and watch, which I did, almost every single one, I won't say every single one of them, but almost every single one of them were assisted threes. And that meaning they were able to get into the paint and then they were able to kick it out and find somebody that was open. So what does that tell me? Well, it starts with guarding the ball. You've got to guard the ball. And if you can't guard the ball and I feel like what our guys are doing a lot of times is we're opening up our hips and we're allowing guys to get into the paint and get downhill. Well, what does that cause? That creates a situation where we have to commit 2 guys to the ball. And when you do that, obviously there's a guy open and now the defense is in scramble mode. And so all it took for Alabama, if you go back and watch, I bet 15 of their threes were assisted. And that's all it took is getting downhill and then making one pass. They didn't even have to make the extra pass. It wasn't even a hockey assist. It wasn't anything like that. It was just getting downhill and making the pass to the backside or fanning it to the wing. And they were able to knock down threes. Look, they're a very capable shooting team. I think on the year, they're almost shooting 39% from beyond the arc. And so when you give those guys the opportunity to knock down, uncontested threes, they're going to do that. So I think that was the biggest thing. And it just goes back. We've said it before, I used to tell my kids this, that there's help there, but don't rely on it. Act like you're on an island by yourself and guard the ball. Don't have to rely on help so much. And unfortunately, I feel like we're relying on too much help.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Why do you think this team has been such a roller coaster? So the ups, the downs, the bad losses, the great wins. Like they're hard. The only thing you can predict that it's probably going to go the opposite of what you think.
I think sometimes with this team, you could look at almost every single game and you could look at the metrics and the statistics and you could pinpoint one thing. Like I said, there's sometimes just a glaring stat that's just so big and it's so glaring that we just can't overcome it, whether that's our free throw shooting percentage, whether we just can't knock down a single three from outside, whether we don't crash the boards well and offensively. I think there's plenty of things that we could go back and look at from game to game. But to me, a lot of times we harp on our offense so much, but to me, really, I think it starts with the defense. I think this A&M team, a lot of times we say, oh, A&M's playing tonight, the ball's rolled out and A&M's playing, oh, we're going to see a good defensive team. And there's maybe some truth to that, but then also at times I don't feel like we're speeding teams up enough. We're turning them over enough. And whenever we don't play, great offense and score a ton of points, I think our defense has to be the catalyst for that. And unfortunately, that hasn't been it for us this year. And so I think that kind of is, and a lot of people would probably look at me funny for saying that, but I think sometimes our defense has to be better. And I think that's kind of the inconsistency problems for sure. And again, a lot of people are probably going to say offensively is more of a deal and a problem for A&M, but I think defensively is what has to get us going in the right direction.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, like Andy Garcia the last couple of games has not had the impact we're used to having, right? He did have, I think, 12 rebounds against Bama, but only played like 19 minutes. The game prior against Vandy, his numbers were low. Does he, we keep pointing at, if Wade goes off or if Boots goes off, but maybe it's like those role players, like when they don't reach their threshold, that's where this team really has a upward battle.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, you want to preach that to the team is that everybody has a key role and everybody has to play their role. And for us to be good, everybody has to do their part. And so, I think that's a big part of it. Again, I think you could go back to each game, whatever game you feel like he didn't have an impact. I know one of those games, I could be lying, but I feel like he fouled out one of those games.
He did.
Yeah. And so, part of that is picking up a lot of fouls early and not being on the floor. You could go back and look at some of the minutes for sure. I think I wanted to say this today. I think I said this as a positive that I thought was a positive last week, but in return, watching the Vandy game, I actually feel like it kind of hurt us, is us getting into smaller rotations and, multiple guys, 5 guys playing over 30 minutes a game. I think that's actually kind of hurt us the last game or two. I feel like our legs haven't been there. I think Buzz alluded to it maybe with you guys yesterday as well. Alabama had their bye week when they did, and they were a little bit more fresh. And then, playing Tennessee, and for us playing Tennessee, winning that game Saturday night and then having to play the early game Tuesday against Vandy, I just don't feel like our legs were there. And I think part of that, is you could attribute it to, a lot of guys playing a lot of minutes. So as much as I said that was a positive because guys are going to get in rhythm because they're playing so many minutes, that can also be a negative when you get deep into SEC play.
So give me the recipe for this magic formula that we were discussing pre-show.
Yeah, Buzz always talks about the magic formula, and he loves crashing the glass, obviously, and I think he would say, I think he talks about getting to the free throw line before the other opponent, winning kind of the foul battle there, and he's just got a couple of different metrics, and say what you want about it. I personally, every team has their own formula. Do I wish that this team's formula was different? I do. I wish our team's formula was a little bit more like Alabama. Honestly, I wish that if we were capable of shooting the ball better, I think our formula would be different. But unfortunately, our formula has to be what it is because we don't have guys that shoot the ball well from outside, and we're undersized, compared to the rest of the league. And to be honest, that's a point that I wanted to talk about too. I feel like that's something that we are missing is, you look at Ole Miss, you look at Kentucky, you look at Florida, you look at some of these other teams, and they have these long, big guys at the rim, and we don't really have that. I do feel like that's something that we're missing. But I feel like for as undersized as we are, I still feel like obviously we rebound the ball well. So as much as I don't love what our formula has to be, it just is what it is, and every team has a formula.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think some of the things that let's see if I want to phrase this. The new charge rules have affected the way this team plays defense, right? Because those calls that used to go their way and these tight possessions last year went A&M's way. This year, more often than not, they aren't. And there's just been little things that kind of take away from the master plan, if you will, that this team has kind of built their success on.
Yeah, for sure. Buzz, he has, I don't know if he still has it, but he had the charge wall, up in the locker room. And having been a former high school basketball coach myself, there's a lot of high school basketball coaches across the state that kind of took that same, blueprint and put it in their locker rooms. And a lot of people would talk about it. Hey, man, Buzz has the charge wall. I'm going to do the same thing for our locker room. And when you kind of take something that is just a huge staple of your program away, I think that's really hard to overcome. And so, not being able to get 3 or 4 charges a game really kind of takes that blue collarness away from what A&M is. A&M's getting on the floor, taking charges, offensive rebounds, defensive rebound, all the things that make us great. And you take one of those, whether you want to call it a pillar away or whatever you want to say, you take something away. And it's not completely taken away, but it's so much harder to get charges these days because of the rule change. And so, yeah, that's I feel like that's been tough to overcome for them because that was such a big deal, even up to last year.
All right, Justin, let's kind of map out the rest of the way. This is a huge week. We know the must-win situation you mentioned earlier. There are some definite games that they should get. There's a couple games they're not going to be favored in. Map it out for us. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, obviously you got to take care of Arkansas. I mean, I think looking at the rest of the schedule, I think the only one that I feel like we can drop and is at Tennessee. I think we got to take care of the Mississippi schools, and I think we got to take care of Georgia, and then a tough one is going to be South Carolina at home. I think that can really, really help our resume, obviously. I think multiple of these games can help our resume, but I think you really got to take care of those games. If you do that, then I think we're dancing. If you slip up against Arkansas, if you slip up against maybe a Mississippi State at home, I mean, I don't see us overcoming that. But I would really like to get to 10 wins, and obviously if we could get to 11, that would be great. But if we can get to 10, then I would feel really good about it.
Justin, do you feel that this team is going to be dancing in March?
Man, that's a great question. I would like to say yes. My initial thought is yes, just because I know, Buzz is great down the stretch and what he's done in the past with these teams late in the season. But I'll tell you this, if we play like we did against Vanderbilt, there's no way. And so we got to come with more energy and more sense of urgency, I guess is a better way to put it, for these last 6 games. And like I said, you lose a game on the road in Knoxville to Tennessee, okay, but we got to take care of the other 5 games, and there's no reason that we can't. Ole Miss, they got us at home. We got to take care of that one on the road. Arkansas tonight, again, is just, I feel like it's the biggest one. If we can get over this one tonight, then that sets us up a little bit better moving down the stretch.
Look, predictions are stupid, right? But I think they're going to just take it to Arkansas. I think they're going to make us, at least for one night, believe, all right, maybe. Because, look, they have had those performances this year where you're like, all right, this is, like the most recent game is the one that sticks in your mind the most. And really the last 2 games have sucked, right? The Vandy game that they should have won, in my opinion, they didn't play well. And they got beat up by Bama. So that's obviously the reason but this team did have Tennessee, a week ago. There are other games, a little bit longer than a week ago. There are other examples that this team has been able to rise up to the challenge, and I think we'll see that this week.
Yeah, for sure. And look, and you woulda, coulda, shoulda. So I hate saying this, but like Buzz talked about it too. Like they're very close to being, you're very close to being an 8-4 team in SEC play. Like, and again, I hate saying that because it's like, hey, well, you're not. But that just shows you and how close this team really is. So again, yeah, I agree with you. This team, as much as they're up and down, they can be up. So let's hope that they're up the last 6 games of this stretch.
Great stuff, Justin. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, David. I appreciate you.
Later, man. Justin Lanham there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Pat Henry as they get ready to leave for the indoor championships, SEC championships. Right now, though, Troubadour time, Troubadour Festival, a Texas barbecue and music experience. They're back at Aggie Park once again, 2nd year in a row, Saturday, May the 18th, and this year's even bigger and better. You got the Troubadour Festival bringing together 35 of the best barbecue joints in Texas for you to indulge in. Unlimited samples of their incredible smoke creations, and you can't forget about the awesome music. By the way, last year, the folks there at Troubadour brought in some barbecue. Hopefully we can talk them into doing that once again. I think it's a great idea. The music, though, is going to be awesome. You're going to have live country music on 2 stages all day long, including this year's headliner, country music icon Travis Tritt. He'll be joined by Texas country legend Pat Green. William Clark Green will be there, the Red Clay Strays, Cameron Sackey Band, and much, much more. Whether you want to experience the barbecue and the concert or just the concert itself, there is a ticket for you. Tickets are now on sale at troubadourfestival.com. Again, that is troubadourfestival.com. Go check it out, and we'll see you at Aggie Park there for the big event, Troubadour Festival. It is coming up on Saturday, May the 18th. Well, just the show. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is now time to talk to Coach Pat Henry here on TexAgs Radio, brought to you by the Brazos Running Company, your local Aggie-owned specialty running store. Save 10% in the store when you mention the code TexAgs10, and check out that new location at Century Square. Coach Henry, how are you?
Good. Where's Caceres?
He is here on Wednesdays. So we did the old switcheroo. You're here today on a Tuesday because you guys are traveling.
Yep.
So, what's the travel plans? You leave tomorrow morning?
We leave tomorrow morning. Yeah,
Okay.
we go to Arkansas tomorrow for the SEC starting on Friday.
How often are you running at Arkansas? I feel like every other week we're going there. It's
Well,
pretty
the
often,
problem
right?
is indoor.
Yeah.
It's indoor. The two facilities within the SEC, there you're allowed to run a conference championship on are Arkansas and Texas A&M.
Okay.
We're the only banked 200-meter track that has seating enough to for the meet. Yeah, you got to have 3,000 seats. So I don't know why people build facilities with a lot less than that, but they are. Kentucky's building one right now that's very small and nice track, but no seating. And South Carolina's got one the same way. And so, yeah, it's good for us. I enjoy putting on the conference championships. I think it's good for our sport. It's good for the community, and I think people enjoy watching that kind of meet.
Does Texas have the seating? Will they, or Oklahoma?
They don't have an indoor facility.
They don't. Okay.
Oklahoma does,
okay,
but it's a flat track. But they have an old track.
When do they announce that typically? Like A&M will get it again soon, we hope?
Yeah, it was next year.
Next year, okay.
We're on a every year rotation. It's us, Arkansas.
Okay.
Unless we have an issue like we did where
Right.
we're building another facility, so then they've had it for, I think this is their third year in a row.
How ready do you feel?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
I mean, whether we got enough bullets or not, that's always the question for every coach. But we're ready to do what we do. We have very few hurts, very few problems. So if we can't get it done, it's because we can't get it done. But if we get it done, it's because this group is together. This is a pretty good group of young people that want to be successful as a group, not just as individuals. They want to be successful as a group, and so that's good to see.
Help us illustrate how sometimes it's about timing, right? I'm sure you've had squads that you thought were going to do fantastic and they struggled. And conversely, you probably had some squads you weren't so sure of and then they showed up when it mattered.
No question. I've had every one of those scenarios. And sometimes it's just a momentum thing. You can get something started at the very beginning of the meet that you gotta still remember we're dealing with young people, and emotions are a huge part of everything we do. And if it's like a football team coming out. If something happens really good right off the bat, seems like it kind of waterfalls. Well, same thing happens in our sport. Same thing happens in almost every sport you watch. It's about emotion. So you try to get it going early.
Has your leadership changed because of the data we get now? I mean, years ago, you had data, but now everything is tracked from the sleep to the nutrition to mental health. Like, there's so many different variables that you probably have to look at and be like, all right, this is how we're going to go.
Yeah, some of it's useless, but
paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of it's really good. A lot of the information we get is good, but the application for young people is completely different sometimes than actually what's available. You can get stuff that's over our head sometimes. And a lot of this stuff, we've been dealing with for a long time. So we know how important sleep has been forever. We know that. Diets have gotten to where, they're a lot more sophisticated now than they used to be, but we still have the same problem. Still, people still eat wrong all the time.
Right.
No matter if the best food is available, it's right there.
They still
pick the wrong.
Right.
Because we all do.
One of the things that I've learned about myself, but I know it's the same thing. You get used to your normal, right? So, and that's why sometimes athletes don't realize how much better they could be because they've been depriving themselves of the nutrients, the sleep, too much training at times as well.
Yeah, overtraining is a huge issue sometimes. But if you look at everything in like you look at training, you know when your training's going well. You know when things are when you're able to do a workout the second week of this month and the second week of next month when you redo that specific workout and you know there's a significant change, then you have to go back and look and see what you're doing.
Yep. No
matter if it's the wrong thing or not. If it's the wrong thing, what could you be doing better to even make that result even better? So listen, try to start listening to some of the information you have available, and if you can make those changes. You got to make, we all do this. We have to reward ourselves for change.
Right.
That's part of it.
One of the things that stuck with me last week is such a different thinking, and it caught me because of the stakes, right? You said you have to be your best when it matters. You have to beat the person next to you, right?
Yeah.
And for recreational runners, you got to run your best race. But your team is trying to win it all. So, if it's your best race, but there's somebody a little bit faster than you better tap into even more.
Yeah, you got to be able to call up the best you can get out of yourself. That might not be able, if you're in lane 5, you may not beat lane 6 no matter what you do. But let's call it up. Let's see what the best effort you can get. And if you get it on that day, maybe that person won't. And that's part of it.
Right.
Your consistency of effort becomes your ability to do it when it really counts.
Let's talk about the men's side and the women's side. From the SEC, 3 men's school ranked in the top 10, 7 in the top 25.
Yeah. And I think that's low rankings.
Yeah.
But things move forward very quickly in this ranking stuff. As we go forward here in the next week or so, they really start seeing some things. A lot of that is so subjective. We'll drop down 2 or 3 teams because actually we didn't compete last weekend. Mm-hmm. So somebody who competed might have had a little better effort. They moved in front of us. Well, that doesn't, So now that we get down to this part of the weekend where everybody has a conference, everybody's got a week, and then everybody goes to the national championships, then you start seeing the rankings.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk about the women's side too. Women ranked 11th heading into the weekend. 3 women SEC schools ranked in the top 10, 9 in the top 25.
Yeah, it's always the same thing across the board. When we get to the national meet, it'll probably 6 of the top 10 will be SEC schools.
Yeah.
The SEC gets after it, and sports are sport, and these people were very competitive amongst institutions. That's why the conference championship is such a great meet, because they're trying, each one of these groups is trying to beat each other, and that's great. That's just great.
How does preparing for the SECs, the preparing part of it, differ from preparing for nationals?
Not much. No, what you learn about yourself in the SEC helps you prepare for the NCAAs, because you're still on a curve right now of learning what you're capable of doing, and environments help you to go to somewhere where you've never been before. Everybody talks about PRs and this and that, and your personal records, your personal bests. It's going into, you're taking yourself where you've never taken yourself before. You're going a little bit past that pain barrier that you weren't able to go for before because of the level of competition. The level of competition heightens everything.
Yeah.
And I always use our high jumpers for a great example, because a great high jumper, and we just happen to have one right now, or a great pole vaulter, you vault, you high jump to the level of the competition.
Sure.
You see it in every sport, but you can for sure see it in an individual team sport, where if there's no other really good high jumpers and you got one of the best in the world, it's hard for her to get really great jumps out of herself. So we do different things within those kinds of meets to try to help ourselves, maybe take more jumps so that at lower bars, so that you're able to start training at a certain amount of jumps. Because when you're really going high, you only have so many jumps in you.
Coach Henry, thank you, sir.
Yeah, no.
Good luck to you.
I hope we have some good results coming home next week, and then it's like I told you before too, we got a big high school track meet
Yeah.
here next week. We got 100+ high schools here and 3,000
Always a destination
entries.
event.
Yeah, be fun to have.
You excited about it?
Yeah, we hadn't been able to do it in a couple years, so we open the door and they come in.
Yeah, they do.
So that's good.
Looking forward to it, sir.
Yep,
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Appreciate it.
And thank you to Brazos Running Company. When we come back, we'll get to your text messages and more. It's TexAgs Radio.
Thank you.
We are back here on what we call TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in here on this Tuesday morning. Big weekend, or big day, I should say. We got baseball, 4 o'clock. We'll talk a little bit about Incarnate Word and Texas A&M baseball here in about 7-8 minutes or so. Sam Kaman, our former employee, will be here, so we'll chit-chat with him. He does their play-by-play. Looking forward to catching up with Sam here, who's a valued member of the team. Also, basketball, obviously, taking on Arkansas. And I'm telling you guys, we're going to get the good A&M basketball team tonight. We're going to get the team that we're like, all right, where you been, guys? It's only been a week, but it was a bad week. That's what I think we're going to get. And I would not be surprised. Like, I don't know what to tell you about the Tennessee game, but we'll worry about that after. Hopefully they take care of business tonight. I just think that this team has too much pride, too much grit, and they've shown us too many times that when they get punched in the mouth, they punch right back. I think we'll certainly see that. We did have some commitment news break overnight. Jason Howell alerts popped up on my TexAgs app. If you do not have the TexAgs app, you're missing out, guys. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. What do we have there? young Luke Evangelist who talks a lot of smack on this show, and people are telling me that I should MMA you.
Well, first of all, for my own health and personal safety, I would prefer if you didn't MMA me.
But we can play basketball, and it might turn into an MMA match.
Oh, yeah, we can definitely play basketball. But again, my skills are just at another level, so I don't know if that's something that you would personally be interested in witnessing. I feel like every person, and this might be a dad thing where your sons are, you are physically challenging them in a game of basketball or something, and they beat you for the first time, and it's like really hurtful. So I don't know if your sons have done that to you yet, but I feel like when we play basketball, it's going to be kind of a similar moment where I beat you probably 11-0. Maybe I'll let you score once, 11-1, and you're just like, wow, I cannot believe that happened.
You smile, which makes me feel like you don't believe that, which is fine.
No,
you see me smiling? No, you don't.
No, I'm just smiling. I'm smiling because Mike Elko
yes, sir,
is somebody who could probably beat both of us in every sport because he's a real athlete and he never sleeps on the recruiting trail. Speaking of that commitment, it was a 2025 four-star from DeSoto, DeAndre Ridden. His nickname is Tiger.
I like that nickname.
He seems to be fierce. I got a text message from JW saying, answering OB's age-old question that he likes to ask anytime we get a commit, it's who else wanted them? And that should tell you a little bit about the quality of that person. So this new running back, he had offers from Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, USC, and Washington. And I saw a list that he was one of the most offered 2025 players in the state of Texas. He was fourth. So just imagine how many great high school players there are in Texas. He was fourth with the most offers among all of them.
I am so excited about what his recruiting class could look like with a little success here, right? Like, I don't know what that success number looks like, right? But if it's 9, 10 wins and people are like, all right, they are building something there. It's not the same old thing. When you get to that level again, right? And it may take a year or two. I hope it happens this year. I believe it can and should happen. But that being said, once you get a little success and people are like saying, oh, I see it's different there. And also the way he's being received on the recruiting trail, talking about Coach Elko and the staff, I think it's gonna be great. So happy to have the Tiger with us here at Texas A&M, committed to the team. Let's do this. Sam Kaman is supposed to join us here in a moment. We will chit-chat with Sam, and he covers Incarnate Word. If you don't remember, I believe it was before you were here, right? Where Sam was here, Luke? Yep. Sam was our Nick before Nick, right? And he decided to go get his master's and also do some color and play-by-play there for Incarnate Word Sports. He got to do a lot of football stuff. He made some news last night. We're not going to get into that, but he is all over the baseball team. So we'll chit-chat with Sam about the baseball team. We'll chit-chat about Aggie sports because I know he follows it all, and we'll try to get to some of your text messages. But before we do all of that, let's do this. Let's go to the phone line, right? And we will, let's see, where did my thing go? Let's see, it's missing for some reason. There it is. All right, caller number one. We're going to give you a free car wash from Aggie Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. They're Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They do offer a monthly membership. We'll give the first caller a free car wash right now. Aggie Express in South College Station, 979-693-1150. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Blast from the past, Sam Kaman in studio, representing UIW, the colors. It's got to be weird for you, right? Like, your team's about to play the school you went to.
Mm-hmm.
I know allegiances are sometimes based on paycheck, right? Like, who pays you is like who you need to win. That being said, it's probably cool to see what A&M baseball's been able to start to do, and it's also you're living your dream.
Yeah, I mean, we're 3-0, A&M's 3-0. I mean, we talked about it last year when UIW played. It's one of those things that it's a win-win for me, even though I do have some more allegiances now with UIW, but I still want to see A&M go to Omaha, have some success. I'd love to see UIW make it to the postseason. They just come off one of their best program years on the baseball side, so it's a fun weekend, or fun midweek game for us.
So you left us, August 2022? Is that right?
Yeah, so my last day was July 31st, yeah.
Look at the memory. All right, so you leave July 31st. You've done 2 football seasons.
Mm-hmm.
How has that been? Just like for somebody whose goals to be Tom Hart, right? Like how has the transition been?
Oh, it's been awesome. The fact that I get to do not just football, baseball, basketball, but I've done more sports, soccer, volleyball. I do just about everything and anything for Incarnate Word, and I've enjoyed it. I didn't have as much experience. This is probably the job that gave me enough confidence and enough reps for them to say, you know what, we'll take a shot on you. And it has been nothing more than I could imagine. I'm like you said, I'm living my dream.
Yeah, that's so great. You were telling, so I know there's connections between UIW and A&M, but then you started reminding me of all the connections, and it goes deeper than Zach Calzada. So kind of tell us some of the connections.
Yeah, just on the football side, everyone remembers when Zach transferred to Auburn and then went to UIW. Right after that, Caleb Chapman followed him. They actually roomed together last year. Both were a good 1-2 combination, as well as Brandon Porter. But then you look at the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
You got your offensive coordinator being Connor McQueen, your running backs coach being Kenny Thrill. It has been so much fun to see not just guys that I grew up watching, which were Connor and Kenny, before I got to A&M, and then covering Zach and Chappie when I was at A&M. I was a camera guy.
Right.
At the Florida game when Caleb caught the touchdown and ended up getting hurt, and then the same game that Zach Calzada is remembered for, which is when he slayed the dragon of the #1 Tide.
Do you get much conversations with these guys? I mean, what kind of access do you get?
I get pretty good access. I mean, even with our baseball team today, it's like they let us come out to practice as much as possible. I see a lot of the athletes actually on campus in classes. I mean, I'm a GA. I'm getting my master's. I'll graduate in May. So it's funny because one of the women's basketball players, her mom was telling her, they know everything about you. And she was like, I know, because we go to class together.
Right.
We're here all the time. I go to shoot-arounds and stuff. So the access is kind of like it would be across the street if you're working inside the athletic department, kind of like Andrew Monaco.
Yep.
He's at practice. He gets to talk to him a lot, create those relationships. And that's what I love to do, is create those relationships and tell those stories.
What sports do you do?
Golly. I mean, all the broadcast sports. So fall we had men's and women's soccer, volleyball and football. Then winter is both basketballs, men's and women's, and then softball and baseball in the spring.
Do you travel for all those, or half of them, or how does that work?
I only do the home games on ESPN Plus, and then some spot games where I get to travel. So like today, it's more of a volunteer
because you're right down the road.
And I'm like, I got to come see my guys.
Right.
And, here at TexAgs, they're at 12th Man Productions. It's a great excuse to also prep for our game on Wednesday. We play UIC, so it's, hey, let's go watch the game because I won't get it on at home, even though it's on SEC Network Plus, and then come back and go to work.
And you go to work. So what is your plan after this? Do you have a game plan?
The game plan is to hopefully continue to be doing play-by-play, whether that's a freelancing role for ESPN, Fox, some of the big networks.
Sure.
Doing freelance for just certain schools or certain conferences. And then, I mean, I'd be okay with having just being the voice of a certain school, a certain team. So,
Sure.
No set plans. So we still got 3 months, but also we're freaking out because we only have 3 months.
Right. So tell me about the baseball team. They're 3-0. What kind of expectations are there on the team?
Yeah, I mean, so coming off a year where they finished second in the Southland, we actually got beat in the conference tournament by McNeese. It was an unfortunate showing there in Lake Charles last year. But, I mean, the goal is everywhere win your conference. And talking to Coach Schatzberger, as much as this time in the non-conference is to get ready, kind of like A&M, you don't really know. You don't want to get too high, too low, too quickly as a fan base or a team. This is a big game because you're coming off a week where you sweep Villanova. The bats are hot. The big question mark is pitching. We saw that on Sunday with McNeese. The Cowboys had 14, 15 walks, and Aggies turned it into 10 runs. I mean, talking to coaches, they say hits get stranded, walks turn into runs. If they can do that, they can hang around. And, I mean, it's happened once before. Not that Aggie fans want to hear that, but UIW has kept some of the games close.
Let me ask you a football thing. When you last worked on this show, heading into the 5-7 season.
Oh,
right?
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And what the mindset was for you when it came to A&M sports before the 5-7 season, like I'm assuming you're thinking they just went 8-4, like this will be a bounce back year. And now fast forward, Mike Elko is in charge, and you're coming off a season where Mike Elko was the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm trying to not have the battered Aggie syndrome and read into it too much. But what he's done on the recruiting trail is definitely big time. I just want to see results as anyone. And even like the basketball team, it's all about consistency. We've gone from number 5 in the college football playoff rankings, just missing in 2020, to 8-4. You look at Alabama; they're the modernness of consistency. Even when they have a down year, they're 10-2, 11-2.
On a down year,
exactly. And so, if A&M can get to that type of consistency on every single front, I like where it's heading. But I know I'll be trying to get to some football games this year. I mean, the home slate is awesome.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Texas, Mizzou's one of those kind of the ones that just fly under the radar after being Cotton Bowl. Yeah, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's. And are you paying attention to Aggie basketball at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to go try to catch a game if that baseball game ends quick enough, but we'll see what happens.
What, that game's at 7?
6 o'clock, I think.
Oh,
6 or 7. I wasn't sure.
But the 4 o'clock baseball game. So you've got a busy slate ahead, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. February is one of our busiest months, and there's nothing like doing game after game after game.
Hey, before I let you go, we touched on it for a second when you talked about Caleb Chapman, but he's getting ready for the NFL draft?
He is. He's been working out in Houston and just trying to make sure he's good to go. Been seeing all his stuff on the social media platforms. So he had a good year. Hopefully he can stay healthy and maybe get a shot.
Yeah, maybe get it. And Zach still has eligibility?
He will be back. He's going to be fighting for QB1 once again. We've got a lot of good talent there.
Who are some of the other quarterbacks they have?
Stubblefield, he was a transfer from East Carolina. Richard Torres had come in from Nebraska when Zach was actually hurt a couple games. He filled in, had a big comeback victory versus McNeese. So QB1 is still, again, up for grabs, but everything from what we've been seeing last year, spring ball coming up pretty soon, Zach's still the front runner.
And you can tell Connor McQueen's got something, can't you?
Oh, it's awesome getting to talk to Connor. And
yeah.
I mean, the first day I actually saw Connor and Kenny there at UIW, they were running through goal line plays and 2-point plays, trying to figure out what they wanted to run, kind of showing their creativity as offensive guys.
What kind of year did they have last year, football-wise?
They were, I can't remember if it was 8-2 or 8-3, but they were second in the conference, and historically it's a one big league, but they had been ranked there in the top 25 all year, and kind of like FSU just felt like they got snubbed, and so this is going to be another one of those revenge type of years. They want to get back to the playoff. 2 years ago, we were 4 quarters away, 4 points away from going to the FCS playoffs.
Right. Well, man, I'm proud of you. Happy to see you doing so well. Happy you're here. Last year, remind me, it was right around this time too, right?
Mm-hmm. It was an 11-5 decision that went A&M's way, but we did it on Zoom this time. We get to do it in person, so just happy to be here.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Good seeing you, man. Proud of you. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, the guy that Sam wants to be one day, well, he's on his way. Tom Hart will be joining us. We'll talk to Tom Hart. Afterwards, we'll do a little bit more basketball because we got Hop and we've got Pounding the Rock. That will get to your text messages at 979-693-1150. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We're going to be calling up Tom Hart here in a moment. He may, Emily, there at the mothership, has his number, I believe. I'm going to just read this email I got because it just caught me off guard. NBA's highest earning stars of the 2023-24 season. Ben Simmons takes the top spot, making, listen to this, $5,413,000 for each game he played in the latest season. Every game he plays, $5 million. The guy doesn't play very often, for the record. John Morant comes in second, while Bradley Beal plays third. The lowest earning NBA star is, gosh, this is so freaking fantastic. The lowest earning NBA star is Julius Randle, making $600,000 per game. That's ridiculous. It's kind of like being a broadcaster for ESPN. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. We talked to our buddy Tom Hart here on the program. Tom, good morning, buddy.
$600,000 a game?
Yeah, I got this email that says Ben Simmons makes the most out of every NBA player per game, $5 million basically per game. John Morant was in second, Bradley Beal third. The lowest earning NBA star was Julius Randle at $613,000 per game.
So what is that per jump shot made for Ben Simmons? Like, that is a really big number.
Yeah, I don't think I can do the math on that one, but it must be nice to be able to play some basketball, man. That is a sport you're going to get your money. I was listening to Carmelo Anthony talk about when they were thinking about buying him out at, what was it? I think the Denver Nuggets, and he's like, you're going to pay me. Like, you can pay me. You're going to pay me the $24 million to walk away. I'm not going to just walk away.
Well, there's something to be learned from the NBA salary structure as it relates, I think, to the future of college athletics, and that is, when you talk about making college players employees and collectively bargaining some of these rights and regulations, one of the things that I keep coming back to is the NBA salaries skyrocketed. The stars have always been paid, right, relative to the rest of, I guess, athletics as a whole or entertainment. But what really changed is when their revenue system got to a point where I think they get 49% of the revenue, if I'm not mistaken. And then the TV deals jumped. Now, all of a sudden, the 12th guy is making $12 million. And I think there's something to be learned for eventually college athletes, whether that's limited to just football or however it's structured, will have some sort of revenue share in place. And what is a fair percentage for that revenue? Because 49% is a big number when you've got to run the rest of these athletic departments and pay for non-revenue sports. If you don't do that, then those non-revenue sports are either going to just simply go away or get downgraded to the extent that they don't look the same or play in the same leagues or conferences that we currently have, I think.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. What'd you think of Rick Pitino's little rant a couple days ago? He seems like an angry man.
Why did he have to throw Missouri under the bus?
I saw that.
Why did he have to say Missouri's slow? Why? Not cool, bro.
No, not cool at all. What's wrong with him? Why is he so grumpy?
I don't know. He said things about his players that coaches just don't say publicly, right? That they might say to the beat writer off the record or to the television guys after shoot around after a frustrating run or something like that. But you just don't say that out loud. And he ran off the entire team. By the way, he ran off one of the nation's top scorers who's now at Memphis and a guy who is talented enough to win him some games. But when he took over that program, he just said, no, I need all my own guys. And, there's an element, Eric Musselman called it speed dating when it comes to recruiting in the transfer portal. There's an element to recruiting that is drastically changed in the portal era, and that's the time frame with which you get to know these players, the parents, the high school coaches, the AAU coaches, whatever, where you can really do a deep dive on who they are, what makes them tick, as opposed to, oh, this guy put up, 16 points a game in the Ohio Valley last year. Let's go grab them. And I think what you see is some coaches that aren't happy with their players because they're not getting what they thought they had. And a big part of that is they don't have – either they're not doing it right or they don't have the time to do it right in this day and age, in this new era.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. So a couple of months back, I asked you this question. It was a topic on the show. And I'm going to ask it again. But, at the time, I didn't say who I was alluding to. But now I can say it. And my question was, when a coach loses his fastball, does he ever get it back? I was talking about Jimbo without mentioning him because he was a national championship coach who could recruit at the highest levels. It felt like he lost his fastball. How often does, like Rick Pitino, has he lost his fastball? He's at a different situation, obviously. But do great coaches get that fastball back? Can you remember examples of a guy who, maybe had a couple down years and then comes back and does what we kind of know him for?
Oh, man, that would take a little bit of mind work here this morning to try and find a coach who suffered through a downturn and then got it back, especially at a national championship level. Many of them don't make it back, and I think there's a variety of reasons for that, right? Like you could sit on Freud's couch and explain, well, once I reached the mountaintop, I got all this money. Billy Donovan said after his first national championship, he was motivated to come back and win a second one. And that drove him, and they returned all those great players who all came back to do it together. And then he won the second, and then he was out on the dock right after winning the second, looking out in the water, and he's like, now what? Now what do I do? Like, I've reached the mountaintop, and I think that motivation shifts. My answer to your question, though, would be the best example of a guy who who kept up with the times and evolved such that he didn't allow himself to lose his fastball would be Saban.
Yep.
Who was against spread offenses and no huddle, and Saban led the charge. And then his eyes were opened by Lane Kiffin, of all people, to say, hey, boss, this is the way it's going. This is what we need to do to compete. And he didn't allow himself to lose the fastball. He made that shift. He made that move. And I think the criticism, when I sit with Jordan Rodgers and we talk quarterback play and the way quarterbacks are taught and trained, one of the things that Jordan regularly discussed was Jimbo's strategy of just teaching the quarterback position is very antiquated. It's the difference between having Peyton Manning and being statuesque and holding the ball up high versus having Patrick Mahomes, which is on the move, throwing off platform, changing your arm angle, just being more mobile, not being a running quarterback, but being more mobile in the pocket. So I think that's one area that's fair to look at and say, hey, he hasn't evolved in this manner. I still think he's knows how to motivate and teach the game. I don't think that changes much.
Tom, I think what you bring up is interesting because in all walks of life and all professions, right, you see it in the UFC, you see it with musicians. Like, you change with success, right? Like, it's a different kind of hunger. It doesn't mean you don't want it the same, but things are different. Your bed's more comfortable. You don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. because you've been the champ. Like, these things happen with time, and only the truly great ones are able to kind of morph into what the future becomes.
I think the challenge, and I know there are people listening right now who can relate to this no matter what they do for a living or being a student or a student athlete or, whatever. The challenge is, how do I be more efficient in my daily activities as I'm working towards whatever goal it is? How do I become more efficient yet don't become lazy? And there's a fine line between being efficient and taking shortcuts. And the shortcuts don't get you the same result. But there's a way to, hey, listen, maybe I don't need to go recruit these 3 stars, right? Like, I'd rather not spend time on the road. That kid's never going to play for us. Let me just focus on the 5 stars. Okay, we can make an argument that you're being more efficient, but you're not taking a shortcut. Then when it comes to I don't want to go on that recruiting trip today. Let's just get the kid on the phone. Well, now that's a shortcut, right? That's a difference. And I'm not saying that happens specifically with coaches, but I think that applies to a lot of different careers and walks of life.
Tom, a week ago, pretty sure we were having a very good conversation when it came to Aggie basketball. They were coming off that win against Tennessee. Since that time, the loss to Vandy, and then the blowout loss to Alabama. And I guess the way I'll end the question, or the statement, I should say, is what a difference a week makes, man. Like, it's a completely different vibe around here.
Well, you can't have the Vandy loss. I mean, I don't know what the team's mindset was, but it certainly seemed like they kind of took that game for granted. And I did tell you before that game that Vandy's got a really good backcourt. They don't do much in the front court, but they've got a really good backcourt. And Nuño ends up hitting the game winner. The Bama loss, which I was there for, is that I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but there's no penalty to losing on the road at Alabama, where they've won 15 straight conference games. They've got the nation's most prolific offense, and they hit a couple of threes early in that game, and it was done. I mean, A&M fought and kept it to single digits a couple times and should be commended for that, but Alabama beats everybody at home, and ended up putting 100 on the board, which is, I think, the 9th time they've done it this year. The Vanderbilt loss was concerning in its, in a nutshell, but in reality, that has happened. There's so much parity in the college game these days, and so many ups and downs that you almost, with a long season, expect to have a dud like that. It's a shame that it happened because it's going to be hurtful come Selection Sunday, at the very least on the seed line. But everybody loses a game, especially on the road, to a team they're not supposed to.
What do you think has been A&M's biggest issue this year? Is it the shooting, or is it maybe the fact that this is who they are? They're up and down. They're going to win some games against teams that they shouldn't because they're such a good defensive team, and they're going to lose some games because they do struggle scoring.
I think they're a much different team if they've got Marble in there and he can play two bigs with that backcourt that are more reliable and can get you a bucket inside. It's a guard-heavy offense, not just because Wade and Boots are good, but also because there's a lack of scoring punch elsewhere. And the poor shooting is certainly a monster part of all of this. But that gets evened out with the offensive rebounding. It's weird, but that's how it works. But I really think you can negate a poor shooting night, as they have numerous times, with just the effort they get on the glass. I don't think it's as good of a defensive team as Buzz has had in the past. They were impacted maybe more than any other team by the block charge rule changing. And that has had a direct impact in their defensive efficiency. The numbers aren't huge, but a couple points a game certainly can impact when you're playing a lot of close games, as A&M has. And I think it also impacts just like the overall efficiency of that unit and how they're taught and how they play help defense. That's what I would point to. The guard play has been fantastic, even though it's been inefficient. It takes a lot of shots to get to where those guys need to go.
Tom, not that I expect you to turn the page completely on the baseball just yet, but the weekend that A&M baseball just had outscored McNeese 31-1. And the reason I bring it up is that, the pitching was the big question for this team last year. And if that's fixed with the way that offense can mash, I mean, watch out.
I don't want to speak out of turn or tails out of school, but I saw Schloss when I was there for the Tennessee game. And, I don't really, full disclosure, do my full baseball dive until after the basketball tournament, after the SEC basketball tournament. And I'll be in, elbows deep. But I said, well, what do you think about your guys? Like, what's the squad? And he looked without a hint of cockiness or braggadocio, and he just said, well, it's the best team I've had since I've been here. And I was literally taken aback. I was like, whoa, what? You've been an Omaha regular, and this is the best team? And then the discussion turned to that challenge of a schedule, which I think everybody is dealing with. There is, I think the SEC is as loaded as it's ever been, which is saying something. There are going to be teams that go on runs or that have bad weekends or they get swept that will then turn around and do the same thing to a quality opponent the next week. So gather all the ammunition you can, like stock the firewood now, have a great non-conference, because no matter how good you are, there are losses coming for everybody in league play.
Ain't that the truth? Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. I'm going to read you this quote from Anthony Rendon. And look, I
know it.
You know it. Well, yeah, I'll read it to the audience yet. Look, and by the way, we want our athletes to be honest and truthful, and then when they are, sometimes it burns us. But you got to also read the room and realize who's listening. Here's Anthony Rendon. It's never been a top priority for me about playing baseball. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before the job. So those things come before it, before I'm leaving. And, you know, to be honest with you, I think a lot of us think that same way when it comes to whatever job we have. But when you're paid millions of dollars and you're a baseball player, I don't think you verbalize it like that.
Couple things to put it in context. This was, sitting in the dugout at spring training at 7 a.m. on a weekday.
Yep.
I don't know if he hadn't had his coffee yet or didn't fully think out his answers, but he seems to be a very thoughtful individual. And I've been watching him since he was in college. But it also explains, I'll answer it in two parts. Yes, a lot of us live our life that way where our work is not the most important thing, and it shouldn't be, right? I mean, faith and family should be above work. That's perfectly fine. But when you play a sport like baseball and you represent a city, you also need to understand that is not just a job, it's a public trust, and you represent the wishes of millions of people in that market and that wear the jersey and that, want to buy the same spikes that you're wearing when they go out and play high school ball, all of that stuff. There's that responsibility. But it also, I think, explains, and I'm not bashing Rendon here, but he has always been an elite talent that was always like, a year away from being a true superstar. Like, we're going to pay money for him. He's going to take us to the next level. There was always something just barely missing there. And I'm talking like the difference between being, 100% on your Madden rating versus 98%. Still really good, still elite, still among the best. But it helps explain to me kind of his line of thinking that I'm not all in on being the absolute best. I'm all in on my life, and that's fine. But my counter is you have a lot of people that pay a lot of money to come watch you play, and you're getting paid a big chunk of money to do so in what is generally a very small window of your life. You'll be done playing. They'll be done in the next 5 years. Then what? Then what do you? Then what are you committed to? And do you wish, man, maybe if I was more committed, I could have won another World Series. I could have led a team. We could have been better in this scenario. I think there's a lot of elements that spill out of that one quote.
Tom Hart here on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Tom, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much.
David, you're the best. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, buddy. On the best. I love that. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Good stuff. All right, we'll hit a break here. I want to address this text from David Edmond. He's about to get the block again. I'm just kidding. I didn't block you. It says, and I'll address it on the other side, but I'll just get you guys to think about it, and maybe you can respond. Any national championship winning coach that went through what Jimbo's quarterback injuries would take a hit, including Saban. Did you see his quarterback depth last year? We'll discuss that at depth next year on TexAgs Radio. Right now, though, we're talking about Heritage Films. Documentary time. You should get a documentary done for your family. That's it. That's the commercial. That's the truth. Because, let's not play the game of telephone when it comes to your family stories. I know you're all like me because There are things that your dad has told you, that your grandfather has told you, and you have some of the details, but you don't have it all. Let's be honest. Like when you tell, like when my kids ask me about my dad's time in Cuba, like I have some of the recollection, like I can tell part of the story, but it's the game of telephone. And then when they tell their kids, it's going to be a different story. It's just, look, get it from the source, right? Get the family story from the source. That's why we did a heritage film with Chance McClain, and my dad told his story from escaping Cuba in 1960 to meeting my mom here in the United States, who also had to leave Cuba, to being a dishwasher when he got to this country because his education meant nothing, and having to re-educate himself and becoming a civil engineer here in town, and all the great stories in between. My dad's story is fantastic, but you know what the beauty is? We all have a very powerful story. All of us have a story. We just got to have the right questions asked and tell that and be given the platform. I'm all over the place talking, but you know what I'm saying. You need to reach out to Chance McClain and get a heritage film done for your family business, your family ranch, or just somebody important in your family. You can also do the Year Flicks, which is a 20-minute Q&A video. Highly recommend these videos because it's more of a benchmark video about your kids, right? 20 minutes Q&A, find out what they're into, who they hang with, some awesome stories that you didn't know, make it like a Facebook memory. Then a couple years later, you follow it up with another benchmark video, and then you have yourself your little 4-part series: freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, Aggie ring, and graduation from A&M. YourHeritageFilm.com is the website. YourHeritageFilm.com. 713-893-8341. 713-893-8341. All right, TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I'm going to do this. I'm going to read a couple of Facebook memories that popped up just to kind of to tell you what I was doing 15 years ago today on the radio show that I was hosting, a porn star versus Dynamo Brian Ching. We played a game of trivia. That's interesting. That popped up on my feed. Also, I was at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis in 2014. And George Whitfield, who was working with Johnny Manziel, told us, just ask George Whitfield if there's one team Manziel would pick, one with an NFL logo, but honestly his favorite is the Texans team with the top pick. But if there was a 33rd team in the league wanting Johnny, he would be all about it. So that was 10 years ago today, 2014. Also, on my Facebook memories, Jameis Winston, 2015, says he will throw at the Combine. Who was his coach at the time, Luke Evangelist?
That would be none other than Jimbo Fisher.
We will talk about Jimbo here in a moment. Let's see, any other good memories that popped up? Those are the one. Oh, Quentin Jackson a year ago today in studio. So those are my Facebook. I might do this every once in a while because there's some cool memories that pop up that have to do with this show. Let's go back to that Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We got a text from once banned David Edmond, and the guy can text. That's what I can say. He will text, right? He's going to go full blast. So let's hear his text.
Yeah, well, first, before we get to that text, I have a good text from David Edmond. He said, "Good to hear from Sam. Keep it up, young man." And I completely agree. It was great to hear from Sam. But
Did you know Sam from before?
I didn't. We had interacted on Twitter before, but this was my first time meeting him in person, and it was really great to meet him.
Yeah, you slid into his DMs.
What? No.
Anyways, like, say hello. Like, hey, you do good work.
Thank you. You didn't have to phrase it like that. But let's get to the text message that we're here to read.
Hold on. Were you here the day I wore the yellow shirt that was too big for me?
No, but I heard about it.
Because your collar looks exactly built the same way mine is. Nick, I know you see it. Like that. You had the undershirt that kind of hides it, but you have like a muscle man collar on.
I commented on it when he walked in, but I was a little rude with my I'm not going to say it on air, and I actually felt bad about it, so I apologized to him immediately. But yeah, I said something about it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, good to see you, buddy. All right. Sorry.
I was trying to change. While Nick was talking, but I couldn't get to it fast enough. But anyways, getting to that text message, David Edmond said, "Any national championship winning coach that went through Jimbo's quarterback injuries would have taken a hit, including Saban."
Yep. You're right. Those talking points were taken from my mouth 3 years ago, and 2 years ago, and 1 year ago. That's the problem, though. It became the annual trend. And why was that? Well, was it the offensive line coach? Potentially. Was it the scheme? Scheme don't matter. Was it how long it took place to develop and the mental gymnastics quarterbacks had to make behind the line of scrimmage? All those play a part in it. But you can't have 3 down years and not go. And I know that David Edmond just goes on to say, I'm not supporting Jimbo. I'm just making point of it. If Alabama would have been on their third quarterback, they'd be in the same position. Sure. But when it becomes a trend, and by the way, that's not the only reason. Stories have come out since then, and some stuff we got wind of during, but like it just wasn't a well-oiled machine, and you don't get those results that A&M has gotten the last couple of years if it was a well-oiled machine. I think very minimal changes, you'll see much more success in games, right? You can't lose on the road as often as they did. How many in a row is it again? Like it's 2.5 years, whatever it's been. 10. So I understand your point. You're right. Like, Ohio State did win a national championship with their third-string quarterback. In what year was that? 2015, 2014, something like that, right?
Yeah,
2015.
14 or 15, or one of those.
It was a year. And you guys will Google and tell me how stupid I am for not knowing the exact year. Regardless, it has happened before. Look, they didn't need that much success to keep homeboy around, right? They just didn't reach those levels. You win that game at Ole Miss, he's probably still your head coach. But you cannot continue to lose your starting quarterback and expect to be back. Anything else, Luke?
Yeah, so I saw something really cool on Twitter the other day. By the way, I did change shirts. I got this shirt at the women's basketball game yesterday. It was really cool.
Represent.
Yeah, it was great. I saw on Twitter that Jace Carter spoke at the press conference yesterday, the one that they do before every home game. And he brought his mom and his brother Jet to the press conference.
Love
and there was a cool video of them sitting there. I just wanted to point out that he's averaging 9.5 points and 5 rebounds over his last 4 games. So I think Jace Carter has definitely played a big role in certainly that Tennessee victory, and also he's going to play a bigger role the rest of this season for sure.
Dude, I love his game. He's not at the same like Dexter Dennis level for me. How can he, right? Dexter was just a different player all season long. But if he can just continue playing at the level I think he's been playing at recently, and of course the rest of the team kind of step it up, I think we'll be all right. Let me just end this segment before we get into what we're going to do with Hop here in a moment, Pounding the Rock. My buddy Juan, you've heard me talk about Juan before, right?
Yep.
He's just sent me a plethora of phone numbers of people to get on the show. And he goes, hey, Holmes, I'm friends with all these people. You can get them on the show. Tell me which name you want me to contact to try to get on the show here in the next week or two. Katino Mobley. Are you familiar with his game?
I am not.
Yeah. Jeannie Buss, familiar with her?
Yes, I am familiar.
Michael Cooper?
Not familiar.
Oh, my gosh. Michael Thompson?
Not familiar.
Jerry West?
Familiar.
Quinn Cook?
Familiar.
Chris Mullen?
Familiar.
I got all these numbers here in the last couple of minutes. James Posey?
Not familiar.
He was a very good defensive player. Played for the Cavs, played for the Houston Rockets.
I'm noticing a lot of Laker and Warrior.
Well, because he's in Los Angeles.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So, I guess he's given me a lot of. It has nothing to do with A&M sports, but I think getting Jerry West on the show would be good, don't you?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think we'll get Jerry West on the show here in the next week or so. That's what we'll do. Jeannie Buss, I can't find Should we get Jeannie Buss on just to say we got Jeannie Buss on?
Yeah, that would be a cool moment.
Nick, you think that's good? Thanks for answering. He said sure. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Pounding the Rock with Hop. We'll do that. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. When you go to that website, you'll see all the great deals that they have on that website, and that's where you start your search. You start there. You'll look to see what they have. And when you go through the entire process, you're going to be like, man, that whole experience was fantastic because, yes, you find the car you want online. But if you go in person, you're going to see a great selection of vehicles. You'll test drive them. You'll have a great experience. You know that you're going to get a great salesperson who's going to watch out for your needs because you'll tell them what you're looking for, right? I need this at this price point, and I need this, right? He's going to take care of all that, or she's going to take care of all that. And then the trade-in value you get, you'll be very happy with. And then the entire process, right? The service during, middle, and after. They have complimentary pickup for all their service customers. It is really the place to go when you're looking for a vehicle here in the Brazos Valley. It's about a 15-minute drive, Brian of Caldwell, short conversation away, but you will see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They are on Highway 21 in Caldwell and online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. It is time to pound the rock here. David Sandhop in studio with us. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. What's up, buddy?
Great, except for the last week of basketball.
Oh my gosh. So when I was talking to Tom Hart, it's funny. It was just a week ago today. We were on a high note, and we did this hit, and we just came off of beating Tennessee. We knew Vanderbilt could be dangerous, but I don't think we expected for that game to play out the way it did. Alabama, I'm not surprised they lost to Alabama. I was just surprised at the way they lost. So, as I've said with pretty much every guest today, what a difference a week make, man.
Yeah, and as you said, I think Alabama was the worst. I think one of the worst matchups on paper for A&M going in. Mm-hmm. So that's what made the Vanderbilt game so much more important. Is that you need to take care of business so you could absorb the Alabama loss, and then next Saturday you have to go to Tennessee, which they're not in a very good mood right now after what happened here at Reed. So they're in a dicey time. This game tonight. I mean, to me, I think this is a must-win game tonight.
By the way, the Tennessee thing. Can they just chill? Like, I think the buzz thing, him coming on the court, like he's apologized, he shouldn't have done it. You know, like let's move on. Like you just got your butt spanked. That had nothing to do with the outcome of the game.
No, and everybody knows Buzz is not mean-spirited. He wasn't showing anybody up. He's just excited. Yeah, he shouldn't have been on the court. But you're right. It's not something you could, demonize him for and make a big deal out of, weeks later.
How surprised are you that we are here right now? And not just the Tennessee win, to what happened, but just overall this season. Had I told you before the year started, look, you're going to lose Boots for a chunk of the season. You're going to lose Henry for a chunk of the season. You're not going to have Julius Marble, and your shooting is not going to be what it was last year, to be honest. So would you have expected to be where we are right now?
I think we all thought this was going to be a good year. I mean, it could still be a good year, but right now I think we'd be comfortably in the tournament and talking about higher seeds as opposed to how can we get off the bubble. Now, had you told me in advance A&M would lead the nation by far in offensive rebounding,
right,
almost 2 rebounds a game, I would have said, oh, then this is going to be great. So this has been one of the craziest seasons because if you look at A&M's resume right now, there are only 4 teams with more quad one wins, and they're all 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the net.
Right.
And there's nobody. A&M is the only team in the top 100 that now has 4 quad 3 losses because Memphis just fell below the line the other night. So
it's the whole thing too. Is you talk about them being a bubble team. A week ago, they weren't a bubble team. They were maybe a 7 seed with a chance to keep rising. They were 2 games out of first place.
Yeah, and you could do this. Any team could do this, but with A&M especially, if you just beat LSU at home, beat the quad 3 at home, and then beat the worst team in the league or the second worst team in the league on the road, you're 8-4, and you're thinking everything's fine. And we're not even talking about the Arkansas game in Fayetteville yet. So yeah, they've left a lot on the table. Yeah, they had the Kentucky and Tennessee win. You watch Iowa State and U of H last night, beat Iowa State. I mean, there are a lot of good wins on that resume, but there are a lot of bad losses.
Hop, what do you think has been their biggest issue recently, this last week?
Oh, well, to me, if you go to this last week, and I focus on the Vanderbilt game, they didn't have the energy level. Mm-hmm. They didn't do what they do well, which is, I always talk in my articles, the equation for success, which is extra shots through offensive rebounding, turnover margin, and free throws. They didn't win any of those categories against Vanderbilt. I mean, they were out-rebounded by Vanderbilt.
Yep.
And so, to me, that's, the Alabama game, to be honest with you, that was, Alabama's just really good on offense.
Yeah, they are.
A&M, the type of defense, when you've got 3 or 4 guys on the perimeter that shoot close to 40%, and then you have a playmaking point guard that can collapse a defense and force defensive rotations, that's a problem for A&M, and it's a problem for most teams. Alabama's scored 8 games over 100, so that was a bad matchup. But the point is, okay, there's a bad matchup, but then you got to win the games where you have good matchups.
How did they get Wade going again? And look, it's not that he's been bad. He only had 10 points against Alabama. He had 18 against Vandy. But there was a point where he was scoring too much because nobody else was getting involved, but now Boots is obviously involved again, scoring again. I think they need Wade closer to that 20, obviously.
You know, that's a good question. When I watch these games, you know, Wade, he has so much of his production is going into the paint and attacking the rim and getting the foul. And it's usually he's not strong enough. Like Boots is so strong, they can bang him and he can finish. Wade can't. He's not getting that call. And I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy against Wade Taylor. I think just you're at that point in the SEC schedule, they're going to let you play and they're going to let you bang. And I think that, if you look at that, he had one free throw in the last game. He needs to have 8 or 9 free throws.
Yes, he does.
And so I think that's a big part of it. You know, he still hit, his share of 3-pointers. But I think where he's struggling is that he's not getting to the free throw line.
One of the things, though, that I think about is this season's had these peaks and valleys that you eventually get back to who you are. Boots got back to the Boots that we're used to. And there was a stretch of this season where I wonder when Boots is going to get going. And again, Wade hasn't been bad, but I expect for him to do more. What has changed for Boots? Is it just the confidence in attacking the rim because he's healthy?
I think so, and he's finishing. He seems to be stronger when he's driving. He's elevating more. So there was something there physically that was he was still able to play, but he didn't have that elite edge to him. And a perfect example, go back to the first Arkansas game they lost. He was 2 of 15. Yeah. Scored like 6 points. That if we're looking for positivity for tonight, that's where you look. You know, Boots, I think in my article I wrote, he's shooting 58% and is averaging 22 points a game in the last 3 games. So I think we can safely say Boots is back, and I do think this team on offense depends on Boots. Yes, Wade's going to get his points, but Boots is the engine to this offense.
If you get that engine to go, and Wade has a typical Wade game, Henry needs to provide something, and I feel like he's starting to get healthy too.
Yeah, Henry is always going to have an issue with his length and his athleticism in terms of vertical leap. He's never going to be like Solomon Washington. He's only 6'7", but his vertical as such, he's crazy. But I think for tonight's game, it's interesting. Arkansas. Actually, they haven't officially said they're out, but they've got 2 other bigs that are questionable and have missed the last couple games. Arkansas is ripe for the picking on the offensive board. In fact, the last game we lost was actually 19-3. A&M had the advantage on the offensive board. I think in Arkansas's last game on Saturday, they were out rebounded on the offensive end by 17. That's where A&M is going to do some damage, or they should do some damage. Look at those offensive rebound numbers tonight as the game goes on, and you'll see pretty quickly if A&M is dominating the offensive boards, they've got a really good chance to take care of business tonight.
Are you surprised, and this is kind of out of left field, but that Eli Lawrence never really found his way in the rotation?
You know, I think two things. Either you need to be able to really shoot well to overcome deficiencies in defense, and he does have some deficiencies in defense. And if you aren't a strong defensive player and do the things that need to be done for Buzz Williams and the type of defense he runs, it's just gonna be hard. And it's nothing on him. He's a great guy, and he's still the energy level on the bench from Eli for not playing for a grad transfer is really incredible. But he just doesn't have that physical makeup of what they're looking for defensively, and he struggled out of the gate offensively, and I think that's kind of squeezed his minutes some.
I hate to already replace Boots, but they're going to need to replace Boots with somebody of similar ilk next year.
Yeah, and they do, and luckily you have the transfer portal. They also have a kid coming in, and you hate to rely on a freshman, that Andre Mills they signed. He's having a monster season, scored about 35 points a game in high school. And he's very much a physical guy that goes in, pounds it, gets to the basket. So I'm certainly not going to say that an 18-year-old Andre Mills is going to replace a 24-year-old Tyrese Radford.
Right.
But you do have some help coming, and there's no question when they go to the transfer portal, they're going to get a couple guards.
Am I crazy for thinking A&M is going to have an excellent performance tonight? Like, for something tells me back against the wall, this team usually responds very well. They're at home. They know they have to have this game. Arkansas has got their issues. I think they're going to have a great game.
Yeah, I think, as I said, Alabama was a poor matchup on paper. Arkansas is an excellent matchup on paper, especially with everything going on. And yes, with the backs against the wall, I would be very disappointed and surprised if this team doesn't come out and make a statement tonight.
So chart out the rest of the way. You got a big week, obviously. You got this game. You've got the Tennessee game. You've got the South Carolina game. Like, these next 3 games, right? If you go 2-1 in these next 3, I think you're back in the position where you feel much better about the tournament.
Yeah, I look at those last 4 games. You look at home at South Carolina, who's starting to they've lost a couple games recently. At Georgia, Mississippi State, at Ole Miss. Those are all coin flip games. They could go one way or the other. They're very winnable, but they're very, I guess losable isn't the correct term. But you look, if they can go to Tennessee and steal that game, I think all of a sudden everything they're fine. But assuming that if you go on the paper, they lose that Tennessee game, they need to win 3 of those last 4 games to be what I consider safe in the tournament. They could go 2-2 and go 9-9. I think they're still under consideration, but that hadn't worked out well in the past.
Right. They'll have to have another really good SEC tournament too.
Yeah.
When you look at this whole season, what do you think their 2-3 best performances are? Obviously, Kentucky, Tennessee come to mind, but like what else? Anything that you say like that's a full performance from Texas A&M?
Wow, full performance. I think clearly the game against
Florida's pretty good.
Florida's pretty good. I tell you what, we talk about last-second shots and how A&M's lost on last-second shots. Florida had 3 good looks to win the game after Wade traveled on the inbounds.
Oh, yeah.
So they were kind of lucky to sneak away from there. I think certainly the Tennessee game at home, also the Iowa State game in Orlando, and I was at that game, and they did that without Coleman and Boots. And they came back. I think they were down 17, 18 points and came back. That Iowa State is now probably their best win of the season.
It's a big, big win, absolutely.
A huge win.
Hop, thank you. Oh, hey, you and Luke got something coming on later.
Yeah. Hey, for you people who aren't subscribers to TexAgs, incredible podcast, Basketball with Luke Evangelist, who knows his basketball, by the way.
He does.
He may not know a lot of other things, but he knows his basketball. So catch us on our podcast, The Reed Report, and it's happening over there.
When is the next time you guys shoot that?
Thursday.
Thursday. All right, so it'll be after an Arkansas victory over beating Arkansas.
Exactly, and then we're talking about how we're going to pound Tennessee in Knoxville.
Pound Tennessee on Pounding the Rock here with Hop. Bam, shalam. Thank you, Hop. Appreciate you. One final segment when we come back next on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Baseball today, 4 o'clock, ICW, and we got basketball obviously taking on Arkansas. Yes, I see your text. Somebody mentioned you can't let Jamal Mark get to the line as much as he did last time. No doubt about that. Before we do anything else, thank you for the reminder, my friend Nick Savage. It's time to end the day with Double Days. Caller number 12, we're going to give you a free car wash. Excuse me, what? We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or one large, one-topping pizza from Double Dave, serving Aggie Land since 1984. They serve up your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls with your reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledays.com, and your favorites are on their way. We go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Some breaking news, some expected breaking news out there, Luke.
Yeah, the College Football Playoff Board of Managers unanimously revised the 12-team playoff format to 5+7, which means the 5 highest-ranked conference champions and then the next 7 at-large, highest-ranked at-large teams will be determined by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. So a little bit of how that's going to look is the conference champs, the highest conference champs will be seeded 1 through 4 and get first-round byes. And then 5 through 12 will play each other in the first round, and those will be at the home field of the higher-ranked teams. So the possibility of playing a playoff game at Kyle Field is certainly in play. And then the quarterfinals and semis will be played in the New Year's Six Bowl, and then the title game will be at a neutral site.
So the 5-7 actually works out better for the Pac-12 because I think they had to sit out because they only have 2 teams, obviously. So this gives them a better chance of getting in. There's one extra spot because that conference championship would have gone to one of the group of 5 conferences out there. So this allows for them to have a better chance to get in. As for A&M hosting a playoff game, sounds great. I'd rather get a bye, but I'll absolutely take a playoff game at Kyle Field. Am I right, Nick? Oh, Nick. Luke and Nick?
I would take that.
Yeah. Anyway, appreciate your cockiness today. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thanks. No problem.
Yeah, you should do that more often, see where it gets you. Tomorrow on the program, Tom Schuberth, Juan Haris. I think we have Trisha Ford coming up. We do have Bronny. We'll have Kendall Rogers. And hopefully we're talking about not only a Texas A&M basketball victory over Arkansas, but hopefully we're talking about an A&M baseball victory there over Incarnate Word and a very sad or happy Sam Kaman. All right, that's going to do it for the program here on this Tuesday. My thanks to Luke, my thanks to Nick, my thanks to the folks there at Bryant Broadcasting, Sean and Emily. Great job as always. That's going to do it for TexAgs Radio. We will see you all mañana.